Welcome to the Triple Takeover Toycast, a fortnightly podcast all about Transformers and occasionally other toy lines as well. My name is Sixo, but more on that later because it's our 100th episode extravaganza. And that's pretty exciting, isn't it, chaps?
Oh, amazing. 100 episodes. How many have I been here for? Not that many.
34, I want to say.
Third.
I think this is
God,
now.
a third?
Pretty much a third of that.
Did we get a telegram from the Queen now? She's
I
still
think
going.
we should, but she's not alive anymore, Liam. I hate to tell you. I don't know if you've got that memo or not. I don't know if it's come through. So
sorry.
King Charles, if you want, I guess maybe we could get him on the blower.
Isn't that not a dog?
I think that's a Cocker Spaniel. Is that what you're thinking of?
It's more useful than King Charles.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
Get a letter from a dog.
Anyway, that aside, before we get all the royalists on writing us letters and things like this, we should say that we do have some exciting things planned for tonight, and there are two gentlemen here to join us because it wasn't enough to have the three of us on for the 100th episode extravaganza. We had to get two extra people as well. We are joined by
legends,
the absolute legends that are Mr. Nick Roche and Mr. James Roberts. Thank you so much to both of you for being here.
Thank you very much. No, I see you did our names in reverse alphabetical order, so
No,
a nice touch.
I do.
It's the order I've amended the spine of my last stand of the records to. But,
but sticky
Oh
tape.
God!
I went with the
God.
order you're on my screen. That's just the order that you happen to be in front of me. So, but it's interesting that you picked up on it right away, James.
No, we're not sensitive about that at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
Has
All
never
good
rankled.
collaborations. Perfect balance.
Yeah.
the rivalry. Who will survive by the end of this episode?
Maybe I introduced you in the sort of order of levels of cocaine energy that I think you're going to bring to the podcast. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that I concede. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
In terms of Mogadon energy, it'd be a different thing, but it's a weird thing to be sort of like, it's like a three-legged race. We're tethered forever. Like I kind of always have to include James in my bios from now on, because I'm the co-creator of Last Stand of the Records, So and then you have to include who the other creator is, and so it's kind of because we haven't fallen.
No,
out.
likewise. No, we've never fallen out.
I got the impression you guys were still friendly, so that's nice.
That's a relief. Seeing as you're here,
Not like Wildman and Furman, eh?
No, exactly. So,
Yeah.
Although I don't know, we missed recording it sadly, but just prior to pressing the record button, James did tell Nick to off. So that was
That's a good friendship. That is,
That's because I missed. Well, it's not. Well, it's not misgendered. It's misnationalized. Jim Bergerac, the Jersey detective, and I attributed him to Guernsey, and that's what earned me the
deeply offensive
profanity.
Deeply offensive.
It is deeply offensive.
Yeah.
I did that last time, Nick, as well. So
Did you?
I fall into that trap as well. Yeah.
I mean, come on. There's two islands.
Two islands, yeah.
Mind you, actually, no, it could work in our favour, because if people do associate Bergerac with Guernsey, good. We get a bit of that sweet publicity, by association.
I mean, I live beside an island as well, James, and often people, get our identities mixed up as well. So it's
that's true. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah.
Were you ever tempted to write Nightbeat as Bergerac, James?
Well, I refer you to my earlier telling Nick to f*** off.
Imagine.
Some of that, Liam.
Well, the music would kind of work with Nightbeat, wouldn't it? That's
it
the
would
only
be
thing.
great, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
That sort
it
of
would.
cod
It would.
reggae, sort of like skank. Yeah.
We're doing well here because we're not even 5 minutes into this episode, and James has told two people to off already. So
The same person, I think.
It's a drinking game.
might see if I can get one in by the end of the episode as well. So
You, Sixo.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, there we go.
I'm so
I do
pleased.
genuinely want to say well done on the 100th episode.
Yeah.
Thank you
guys,
very
'cause
much.
Yes.
It's a
Props.
big deal. There is something, I think, as Marvel UK comics readers, anything with like 2 zeros at the end feels
that's
like
it's still cover.
It
isn't
is.
it?
It's a wraparound, guys. This is a wraparound.
It's a wraparound episode. Yeah.
Who's going to be in the front? Who's going to be in the back? James.
Well, I was going to say,
read the wheel.
we're planning the cover up for this one. It's going to be Nick ripping his shirt open with James bursting out with a big 100 just on it.
Sounds
Like
good
that.
to me.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Kind of what I was thinking.
Oh,
Got your work cut out, Sixo.
fully painted.
Have you read that fanfic from Tumblr in 2012, Sixo? No?
That's what I was basing it on, actually.
Yeah,
Funny
good,
enough,
okay,
that
yeah.
was the inspiration for it. So, no, it is an exciting one. And it's really
is.
funny, actually. It feels really weird. I remember when we were sat down doing our 50th And obviously there was me, Liam, and Maz there for that one. So it feels like a long time ago. That guy.
Oh, bless him.
And we may as well say we were hoping to get him on tonight, and it so nearly happened. Like, it was down to the wire. It was about an hour ago. He was all set to be on here.
It just turns out that he can't handle it when James tells him to so.
Right, exactly. It was the tears that really got me. I was so surprised.
They turned to ice as well where Maz lives. So yeah.
He just walked out into the snow like Captain Scott or whatever that was.
Yeah, just kept going towards a volcano.
Little frozen husky.
Eating a tin of lead.
It's very sad.
R.I.P. Maz.
Yeah, R.I.P. Bless him.
Peace out, bro.
Sleep well, sweet prince.
Yeah, such a shame. But no, I do remember recording episode 50 and thinking, how have we got to 50 episodes? This is insane. And somehow,
well, especially back then, the friction was quite prominent, wasn't it? But I think you guys, you had your mediators in, and it's
we did.
It's become a lot easier.
HR
cracks.
Yeah. I know nothing of this.
It was all confidential.
Well, it's all been relatively plain sailing since Jason joined.
Well, Jason, I think, might be the Simon Furman of the podcast, because he comes in he comes in 3/4 of the way through the run, like the way Furman did on the
and just
UK
manages to extend its life a bit.
Yeah. It makes it really good at the end. It's like, I thought I was enjoying this before. Now I love it.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, yeah, and Jason is so good at taking a lot of the flack and the sort of brunt of the jokes and things like that as well, bless him. That
I am, aren't I?
Really made it easier for the rest of us.
Yeah. That's HR do call that bullying, though, Sixo.
Yeah, I know. It's a concern.
You should see the Discord.
We've signed NDAs about that. It's all taken care of.
But no, it's been fun. And looking forward to chatting with you guys tonight, because we have had you both on before as well. Although, James, I think this is your first time on a public episode, isn't it?
He's freed from behind the paywall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You've always been paywalled.
Because you normally save me for the more premium stuff.
Exactly, that's what it's
true.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Get stuff, James.
Yeah, it's the champagne content.
I'm happy for the masses to listen in. Hello, plebs. Nice to speak to you.
Tell them to f*** off as well.
I know which side my bread's buttered.
Episode 100 was the last one.
We could be Corbyn, but we Starmer. So.
Right, well, it is going to be a good fun one. So I should mention before we get going, because I know I'll forget otherwise, that we do have a sponsor for the evening, and that is tfsource.com. So you can check them out for all your Transformers needs, of course. And we do have a Patreon as well. So as we've already kind of mentioned, if you want to get more of this kind of stuff, sometimes including James and Nick as well on our Patreon, which is dead exciting. But there are 5 glorious tiers of stuff on there. So you should go and check it out. And have a look at all the various minisodes and miniseries and whatever else we've got going on there. So, and you guys listen to a lot of that content as well. I'm not mistaken, am I? I'm putting you on the spot
really
now.
Do.
But...
No, you know I do. I think I would do well in a Triple Takeover quiz about Triple Takeover. Not about the toys or the things like that. But I think
TFN idea, if ever I've had one.
Yeah, that'll really draw them in, wouldn't it?
That could have been tonight. That could have been the subject. Put you to the
really
test.
Like the snake is eating itself then, isn't it? But no, it does. Like, yeah, it's a but like it's all the Transformer creatives do. Like I was speaking to Evan from Hasbro the other day, and Evan from Hasbro bigging up listening to certain episodes. I know, yeah, but he doesn't even listen to the episode he's on. He listens to the show.
Do you think he's listening now?
Absolutely. Well, he started, but he's not sticking with this one.
Really?
No, he's not sticking with this one. Are you serious? Have you heard this?
Oh, they'll trim this down a tight 5 minutes.
Absolutely, we will. There's going to be a heavy edit on this one. We have to cut out all of James's profanity.
Probably waiting for James to tell him to off.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yes, we are genuine fans. Very good, very good. A lot of content, a lot of quality content.
When you say the word content, James, it's, I don't know, there's a sort of...
edge to it, isn't there?
There's an element to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's because when I use it on X, the word content, I always put a hashtag in front of it, and it is a pejorative in that context. But this is
all good vibes.
I'll say it more brightly. You put out a lot of content.
That was much better. Yeah.
Content is usually the phrase that's used for the matter that you unclog from the kitchen sink, it feels. Do you know?
Yes, it is.
It's your turn to dislodge the content
material
again.
A lot of material.
And that's what
material.
Material. And that's what Triple Takeover provides.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's like we're going down the drain. So
you're not fast enough though, Liam. It's kind of it's a lot of elbow grease required.
Circling the drain.
Yeah.
I think the weirdest one for me was discovering that ILM had listened to us through Transformers 1 production, things like that. That was really weird. Because that was weird. Particularly when we were chatting with them and they knew quite a few, they had a lot of the kind of in-jokes and things like this. And we were a bit like, oh, like you guys really listen. This is
that made me jealous even more. That episode did. So it's like
they were so lovely as well. Honestly,
they were very lovely.
Really, really nice.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. It's a weird one to kind of land on us for the 100th episode. Let's be honest. Like if we're talking about Hasbro and ILM and Lorenzo, and
you are the best guys. You are the favourite guys.
Well, I think it was Liam's idea, and we just couldn't be asked to argue. So
yeah.
You knew we'd say yes. So
yeah. You knew we weren't doing anything else on a Monday
easy
night.
marks.
So.
Yeah,
easy marks. Yeah, exactly.
Desperate for some coverage.
The yes there is, the yes there was, and the yes there will be. There we go.
First of the night. Let's keep them going, Liam. Let's.
Yeah, there we go. Well, that was from when I was rereading the records this time. It was only the first time I'd clocked the Bret Hart gag.
Oh yeah.
What? I haven't even clocked it now.
Well, James and I were really good about sort of never. Sometimes because we forget ourselves, but never kind of tipping the hand about who's responsible for what elements of anything that we've written together.
Right.
But there's some bits you can tell.
Yeah, straight away.
And James is more of a Shawn Michaels guy anyway. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah, there's a lot of Shawn Michaels stuff in More Than Meets the Eye, but
yeah,
that's all those screw jobs. All those screw jobs.
I remember Screwjob. He shows up in issue 25 more than he said, doesn't he? Screwjob does, yeah.
Oh yeah, Screwjob. Yeah,
yeah. He's another one of James's OCs.
Self inserts. Yeah.
Yeah. It's your own job. You're screwing, pal.
Funnily enough, one of the big questions I had actually was going to be about how you guys, which bits you wrote, I suppose, but how you kind of came together in doing it. And I know some of this you've talked about before and things like this, but it seems as good a place as any to kind of kick us off. I mean, what were the origins of this book? Because it was quite unusual when it launched, wasn't it, in terms of what was going on with IDW at the time?
Yes.
I think we should mention the name of the book.
I was thinking that as well. People know, yeah.
It's a good call.
And the fact that it's the 15th anniversary. That's
true,
yeah.
That's
crazy.
The upsetting part. Yeah.
It's almost old enough to drive.
It is, yeah.
That is 15 years, yeah. So it is, of course, Last Stand of the Wreckers is what we're talking about predominantly tonight. And whatever other shenanigans fall out of that is fine. But that is what we've...
That's the hook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm still reeling from your last episode, Nick, where it was like, let's talk about Earthspark. And I think probably 20% of the episode...
No.
Yeah,
2%.
Yeah. There is real, whatever else but the energy, there's real energy of like, oh, I'm talking to people. Energy of sort of like,
friends.
You aren't tired of my shit. So, friends.
Who said that, Nick? Who said that?
No, I mean, that's what I told my wife when when she had to bang on the ceiling at 1 a.m. to go. Yeah. Last Stand of the Wreckers. It's 15 years, and it's probably. I think it feels like it's on average it's 15 years. Isn't it?
It's a proper 15
years. We definitely
years.
started it in 2000. Yeah, since its release because it started in 2009.
Yes, some people. They play fast and loose with this kind of anniversary stuff. But no, Last Stand of the Wreckers issue 2 would have come out now, 15 years ago.
Wow.
February. Yeah.
Weirdly, it got pitched to me at BotCon 2008, I guess it would have been 2009. Sorry, 2009, because it was the Revenge of the Fallen year. And I had just done the All Hail Megatron coda for issue 14 of All Hail Megatron. All Hail Megatron is supposed to be 12 issues, but it was a big title that was kind of like bringing in readers and said it's trying to keep the brand going. So they created these kind of coda issues to kind of tie up a few loose ends and to kind of be like bridging stories to kind of the next kind of continuity reboot that was happening. And Denton Tipton, who was an editor who had been there for a few years, he was very kind of invested in keeping the old readers kind of happy and, and keeping some of the story threads going that they had been invested in, and if not tying them up, but at least kind of acknowledging that they exist. And so he hit me up for the Cup coda story in All Hail Megatron 14, Everything in Its Right Place, where it kind of explains why Cup, and then it just keeps going back further, why Cup has miraculously recovered after his kind of catatonic state at the end of Spotlight Cup from 2 years previously, why he's got a cigar. The cigar didn't need to be explained, but I used it as a kind of a plot device to explain that he's kind of like he's under a form of mind control from Prowl as a sort of propaganda tool, and that's why he's fitting well and ready and with Springer in All Hail Megatron, as he had just appeared. And Denton was happy with that, and the readers were happy with that, and I was just dying to do some more writing work, and Denton took me for dinner at BotCon 2009, and he said, "Would you like to do a Wreckers miniseries?" And I was like, obviously yes. And I remember saying, "Who's going to write it?" And he said, "You are." Actually, it wasn't even straight away. It was towards the end of the conversation where he was talking about it, and then I was sort of like, "Oh yeah." And who do you see is going to write this? And he's like, "It's you, obviously." So it's like that was a big deal because it was the first time I'd written a series. I'd written a spotlight. I'd written a half short story, and then the plan was to kind of write this series. And something I'd always wanted to do with those characters because I'm a big fan of those kind of 1986 era characters and like the Wreckers themselves in Marvel UK. How there are these kind of underused characters. They're the Island of Lost Toys sort of thing, the misfits, the literal toy misfits that never had subgroups or never had kind of like, features. And I remember I did have an idea, and it was just the title, and it was going to be Hot Rod and the Wreckers, because it sounds like a band, and like that's Hot Rod in it. But Hot Rod was off the table for this anyway. But like that was before I knew that I could be asked to do a Wrecker story. And that was kind of the start of it then. I tried looking through some old emails that dated back to then, and I think there must have been a hack or something like that in my email account, because there's a big, or I deleted a load of stuff in a trauma dump. But it was, I couldn't find any of those initial emails to hand about like how we kind of got started with it. But there was a long back and forth across the summer. That was, I guess, in June, and they were already planning to launch the big reboot of Transformers, following All Hail Megatron, with Transformers issue 1, an ongoing series. The first time IDW had done an ongoing, like, adjectiveless Transformers comic. It's going to be written by Mike Costa, who'd done stuff for Marvel, and it's going to have like 2 ancillary and comics to go with it. One was the Bumblebee miniseries, which is written by Xander Cannon, who just written Top 10 with Alan Moore. So, the incoming editor at IDW had this quite deep and rich pocketbook of address book of creators that he was able to bring in. And there was going to be this third book to go with it, and that was going to be Wreckers. It was going to be a Wreckers book, and that was very much pushed from Denton's side of it, who again was sort of like, these guys, these readers have been following the Furman stuff, and they want to know where these characters are going to end up, and we kind of owe it to them. And I think it was with a bit of gritted teeth, perhaps, that it was greenlit, and like lots of cases had to be made for it. And I do know that I was under a lot of scrutiny about getting the story in shape, which is good because what makes it a good story, but it was quite time consuming. And I feel at this stage I can say I'm not sure the other books were under the same level of scrutiny about like not even continuity. It wasn't continuity at all. It was sort of like reasons for this happening. It's good to kind of come up with motives and a direction for the story, but it sort of felt like everything that I was sending was kind of being bounced back, but without any, I feel like, notes about how to kind of fix it. So it was kind of getting to the stage where we knew they wanted to be up and running because they had like a launch date. And even then, like I was contacted in June. This was going to be launching in like the end of the year. It's a long time. Like now, if you solicit a comic, you kind of need to have they usually tend to have the first issue written, drawn, colored, lettered, 5 months before it kind of goes to solicits like a new series.
Yeah.
But I was contacted in June, and it was supposed to due out like end of the year, first week of January. So it would have been a big ask anyway. So we were kind of up against it. And I remember that one of the big stumbling blocks was the motivation of Overlord, and why is what he was doing was never a problem. Yeah, but it was what he was doing was never kind of a problem, but it was like why is he doing it? What is his motivation? And it is only in hindsight that we lived in the year 2025 now. We can see that some people are just arseholes just to be arseholes. The biggest villains in the world are just like that because they're all overlords. But without his style.
Or lips.
But it is good. It is obviously good. It's good writing. Or lips, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think I've seen some of those collagen implants some of our overlords have. So there was a lot of kind of pushback on that. And there was a lot of asking, why this character? Why should we care about this character? And a lot of it was because, these are the Wreckers and stuff. And it's like, but these are... Like, I do remember it was suggested that I put Drift in the Wreckers. And with all respect to Drift, he's not a wrecker. Do you know what I mean? Like he's, he's cool to draw. It was also suggested that like RC be part of the Wreckers, and she hadn't. I think she's shown up by then because she hadn't shown up by then because the spotlight hadn't been released, as far as I know. Oh no, she had shown up by then. Sorry, of course she had because it ties in with Gareth Knight.
Yeah,
but I was really I still had Simon Furman's mantra about the IDW stuff in my head, which is sort of like, if it's been done before, don't do it again. And for that reason, even though I'm writing records, which is like reheating his leftovers, I didn't want to put RC and Springer and Cup together, and Perceptor.
Yeah.
Because that had been done in All Hail Megatron. It had been, and it's so nice to see those characters together. But I'm sort of like, that's not the records. That's like the season 3 cast. Yeah. And Ultra Magnus is in it too. So I was really reticent about having RC in there, but I did want to have a female character in there. And that was the reason. I wanted a female character in there, and I wanted context for them being Transformers. Because it's great to have space epics. I believe, there's probably examples of Transformers media where that's been successfully done. I cannot think of any at the moment. But I'm sure there is a few good Transformer space epics out there with little or no human content in it. Content is the right word, James, this time, yeah?
Very Christopher Lambert Highlander laugh.
But it was I wanted Verity in it because she kind of gave context. It makes them giant robots,
Yeah.
And it kind of it gives and the contrast. The contrast. So that's kind of where I was, but I was getting lots and lots of pushback.
Was this from Hasbro, the pushback, or was it from IDW?
No, it was from within IDW and not from Dent and Tipton either. It was for like the editor that had come in. He was very. It's valid, right? But he is Andy Schmidt. He'd worked for Marvel, and he was a big, good comics editor, right? But he hadn't been reading the Transformers books as they kind of came out. He'd done his homework on them, obviously, and he's a big Marvel Transformers comics fan. But he's a cartoon fan.
Right.
Again, that's valid. I'm allowing that.
Yeah.
But so I think there was definitely kind of like nudges towards that, and that's why he kind of maybe didn't feel he's sort of like why Overlord, like as a character. And I was like, well, there's no one else left. There isn't like and very much why Impactor. There was like massive pushback on
just because it was a tie back to the Marvel days,
the Marvel, and that was not something
context,
he didn't know the Marvel UK stuff, because that stuff isn't like on file or and it had no emotional resonance to him, because like it's ingrained in us because we read it at a formative age and stuff, and he would have had to do, as an incoming editor, just had to take it all as a homework assignment, and it's. You're not going to sort of like go gooey-eyed over Target 2006 if you're having to read it for work and as a pile of everything else.
And for the first time in like 2009 or
whatever, exactly. And he's a man who's worked for Marvel Comics as well, who is like like he was heavily responsible for like the Annihilation stuff and all like the Nova kind of Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. He was like a heavy hand with Lanning and Abnett on the Guardian stuff, and so he was so he was coming from like a different world as well, and so he kind of wanted comics to be done a certain way. It's not the wrong way, but it just wasn't how I had done Transformer comics before, how I'd seen them done before. And anyway, so that put us behind. It's not all on him, like absolutely, but like it was, I could not find a way to do the things that he wanted me to do. And so I remember being at TF Nation Jeepers, Auto Assembly 2009, and it being announced by then, and people were sort of talking to me about it. And by then I knew that James was on board, but I hadn't sort of said it yet. And I've been trying to kind of get James, open the door for James for years, because I wanted him to write Transformers before I wrote Transformers. When I got asked to write the Spotlight Cup, I asked, Chris Ryle told me that they were looking for new writers, new voices. And I was like, oh, my friend James can do that. And then I remember like, walking away and then just going, I could do that, so it was, and we'd had a few kind of like, that was why it's, again, if I'm speaking out of Turner, but that's why James gets a big thank you credit in Everything in Its Right Place on All Hail Megatron, because it's not like, he didn't contribute necessarily to the script, but I wanted to make sure that people knew that there was a guy called James Roberts who knows his stuff and who I show my stuff to. And if I can get his name in print, we can, go from there, because he's kind of in the books somehow.
Yeah.
So that was kind of part of that. So yeah, I can't remember how. Oh, I can remember. So before James jumps in with his side of the story, I remember. It was suggested to me about getting a co-writer, and I was like, and they suggested the co-writer would be this guy that Andy Schmidt knew from Marvel, called John Barber. And I was like, who's John Barber? I don't know John Barber. I don't know his stuff. And he probably doesn't know as much about Transformers as James Roberts. So when I suggested that, I kind of knew someone who knows his stuff and has had, like, has written a novel, Transformers novel at that stage, and, like, is kind of like who I consider to be the guy. I said, and he's a friend. I feel more comfortable writing with him. So, but I can't remember how the initial topics or approach, James, how we started making that happen.
No, I'm trying to piece together while I've been listening, I was looking at the emails from the time. So I have still got them, and I see that it's August 2009 is when was our first joint.
I couldn't find that. Yeah,
breakdown.
I was looking for it.
Because issue
first
one
of many breakdowns, James. Hey,
issue one was pretty much done, and then a lot of IDW editorials questions were about what happens next. So anyway, so it's around that time. Prior to that, I mean, as I think you alluded to it then. I mean, thanks to you, I'd been invited in a very loose way. I'd been invited to pitch, but with absolutely with very little happening as a result. So I know we did the Spotlight Octane, did a Dinobots origin.
Dinobots, the Octane thing people might have seen, because I did do like a finished cover and did a logo treatment and everything. And James has probably definitely spoke about this before, how so many elements of that end up. It's in Fulcrum, I think, isn't it? I think, and So I thought the art might sell the thing, and it's hard to know, James. Did it even get looked at? So
I don't know. I mean, I know
like the Dinobot thing might have done. But...
I mean, the feedback was very scant. So and this was over quite a long period as well, I guess. So anyway, I can't remember. It must have been you. It must have been you, Nick, that was the first person to say to me, "Are you interested?" Having already spoken to IDW, and then I guess it was an introduction from Andy. The earliest emails are from late August that year, and then as you say, because there was the time was against us, and I know there was a lot of back and forth between you and me trying to work out what it was, the magic combination of events and character motivations that would excite IDW and just allow us to get going with it.
It feels that was definitely something. Actually, no, I can't remember. It feels like maybe, but having you on board meant that I could do some. I'm trying to think actually, who was doing bits of everything, because there was definitely stuff once you came on board, James, that was able to be built back into issue one as it was being edited. Like, as in, from reading issue one today, it's like
right.
There's the stuff that you had introduced, and it was like folded back in. But then I do sometimes feel that like it was able to, like, so you could write ahead on bits, so I could come up with motivations and stuff for characters and vice versa.
I mean, it sounds very obvious to say, but I mean, with two of us doing it, and then both of us were working on it at the same time, not always on the same thing, but we could tag team it.
Yeah, it was like a relay at the end, I remember.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I remember it's like James sort of like helping, Jesus, like putting together, being the last set of fingerprints on the draft of issue 5 or whatever. And I remember like very distinctly sort of saying, right, don't talk to me for 4 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, I will talk to you at the end of when because by that stage I was allowed to draw the whole thing, ink the whole thing. Like, there was no sort of like artist on that, so I wanted to nail it and stuff like that. But I felt bad for doing that.
I mean, so I didn't have any art duties to worry about. We had Andrew Griffiths did a little bit, didn't he?
Oh, he did. I was looking through that today because we had.
Yeah.
So because one of the things as well, because it's drawn Transformers and they're time consuming, and I was writing as well, even though I was co-writing it still kind of. And so they weren't happy with the speed of the art and stuff, and I understand that. But I do remember trying to explain to them early on. It was like, by the time it takes me to pencil a page for an inker, I could just ink the page, which is genuinely true. But they had an inker called John Wycock come in for the first couple of bits, and he's a good inker, but I don't think he's a Transformers artist, and I definitely don't think he was like literate to the same stupid degree that like I and Guido and Andrew Griffith are in. So he's got like had a lovely brush touch to some of the bits, but I do remember sort of thinking, it's my pencil's fault, but he's maybe not interpreting that the right way. Whereas someone like Andrew or Guido, like it's stupid stuff like the knuckles. Do you know what I mean? You kind of know as a Transformers artist, if you like leave some pencil lines in those areas, you kind of know what they need to be finished as and stuff like that. And John was just, he's just inking what was on the page, which is what an inker does. So Andrew comes in on issue 3 to ink some of my pages, and I really, really love those pages. Looking through them today, I was genuinely sort of like, did I ink these? Not that I'm the best, but I feel like I'm the best thing, best inker for my own stuff, sort of thing. Like it's I've ever, so. Yeah, Andrew came in to do bits, and then because of the kind of the pace as well, it was Christmas time. Guido was brought in to do a big chunk. Guidi brought in to do a big chunk of pages.
And Josh was on board from the start. I just saw the email introducing him to me at least. You may have worked.
That's a very sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi meet Anakin Skywalker, isn't it? So.
Yeah, that's cool. But tell you what, though, looking at I kind of got it in front of me now.
I'm Qui-Gon in this, by the way.
I was going to say, did James chop off his hands on a fiery volcano?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
That's how that went.
That's why Joanna had to take over more than meets the eye.
So August 18th, 2009, we presented IDW with the newest outline, and at that point it was still called The Wrecker's Last Stand.
Wow. Oh, wow. Now the title was not ours at all. It was given to us.
Oh, was it? It's interesting.
That was from Andy as well. It was it had to be The Wrecker's Last Stand or Last Stand. The Wrecker's Last Stand. Wow, that's mad, isn't it?
Last Stand of the Wreckers is better. Dare I say?
It is better. Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
I think I disagree. I'm glad you say that, but I think that's because I think that familiarity has done that. I think
you could be right. Yeah,
we're so familiar with, because at the time, I remember at the time, I can't speak for Nick. I forget what Nick thought, but I remember thinking Last Stand of the Wreckers. Syntactically is an odd way of saying it,
right?
You wouldn't say the last stand of the Autobots. You say the Autobots' last stand, or in fact, the Autobots' last stand was a strapline on the UK comic as well. So maybe I'm biased for that reason.
I did, when I was rereading it, find it weird there was no the, because it's just Last Stand of the Wreckers, isn't it?
Ooh. I can't even remember myself. Yeah, so I think there's like some old cover treatments. You see it online sometimes. There's the old logo, and it says The Last Stand of the Wreckers. I think on I think it was on the preview to the cover before the logo was finalized, and it's the lettering is a little bit sort of jumpy. I believe that the fact that it was called Last Stand of the Wreckers was very much a sort of a case of like the lid is going on this before we, this is the end of this story.
This is
and that was something we were definitely informed about like how it's not expected to do well, and it is like literally directly to us. Not expected to do well. This is for the fans of the old continuity,
hardcore.
And this is before it came out.
Wow,
that's
how wrong they could be.
So weird. What a weird thing to kind of lead in with as as an idea to get you creatively going. I don't know.
Yeah, I found that quite a strange too, Sixo. Yeah.
Write this story. It won't do well.
I just thought that's the way the industry works or something. But I hadn't had that before or since.
It meant we got a second printing on the first issue.
Yeah,
that was a nice feeling.
Yeah,
and Impactor was on
25 copies sold out.
That's a great cover. Jeez,
one of the things there's enough distance to kind of at this stage from looking through it today. It's the first time the first time I've read it start to finish since it came out. I think. I would have flicked through bits from you. I probably more used the TF Wiki when I was writing the sequels, so I probably would have. And that last, I'm still really happy with that last page of issue 1. It doesn't let itself down. I think. No. But one of the issues as well with the editor and like his. It was just a kind of like a lack of knowledge about, and also why, genuinely, to be fair to Andy, like why should he care about Transformers UK? He's making Transformers 2010. He's making the new. So, but one of the things when Impactor was introduced, and then Josh shows the colors of Impactor, it was very much a case. Oh, I don't like those colors. It was like, why does he have to be those colors? Well. That's the colours he is.
Because that's him.
That's just what he is, yeah. It must have been so hard to have these conversations without constantly going, because that's what it already is.
Yeah. Definitely, and you're trying to be, because it's my first series, it was our first series. And you want to be asked back to do it again. And you don't want to be difficult, and you don't want to be seen as difficult. You don't want to be seen as difficult, and you also assume, well, look, I mean, who's got the seniority here? Not even just the case of who's our boss, like who's got the the accolades and the experience. Yeah. So what you'd learn to do, what we learned to do, I think, you'd save your ammunition for the stuff that really really mattered. So you think, okay, well, we can. Yeah. We can concede on this because we want to make an argument. Yeah, choose your battles. Whatever. Yeah, choose your battles. And it was great that we had support with each other. Sorry, James, you had. But I was just going to say, it's great we could support each other so that like we could kind of, one of us could sort of talk the other around. It's not that we were sort of like, well, we were, but it's nice to be able to sort of have that corroboration of sort of like, no, look, we did hear the same thing. Let's do this about it. No, so we sent that document in. I mentioned the newest outline, and we got the feedback and got the notes, and it's been a group email between you and me and Andy and Denton, and I think somebody else too. But then I see that there's me emailing you saying, right, Nick, this is just to you, this email, and we had like a sidebar about how are we gonna argue for this? Are we gonna push for that? I'm trying to think of the timing of things because there wasn't much of a lead in. The production time wasn't very long. We were still working on the later issues when issue 1, when the feedback was coming in for issue 1. So the one benefit of that, and maybe the only benefit, was that it kind of gave, the reaction was good. The sales were better than expected, and that gave us a bit more clout when it came to pushing for some of the things at the end. And our confidence, I think, increased as we went on. I really think so. Reading it today, James, is like it feels like we're learning to walk, and like that's not to do down the first couple of issues or anything like it. Like, but it's, we found our rhythm. If I can pick out bits, if I can pick out bits in the first issue that I like, it's just like issue 5 feels like it's got like confidence, and it feels like it's kind of like we know we're on the home stretch, and there's people waiting for us. It's really a nice feeling. I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm proud of it all. I'm particularly proud of 5. Because me too, and this is kind of symptomatic in a way of where we were at the time. Because as Nick says, we were. I mean, the UK comic was relatively. I hadn't finished that long ago. 18 years. Not comparing, a while. But I read issue 5, and it feels like the end of Time Wars, or it feels like the end of Legacy of Unicron. It's got that kind of climactic feel to it. It does. It does. Nice. And that's because we were, not slavish is the wrong word, but like we had learned the defeat of Simon Furman, we had, absolutely. And it was such a love letter to him and that stuff and that scale and what we thought Transformers means to us. This is what it's about,
Well, if I may, it's interesting that you say that, because to me, coming in, and you know my story, that I obviously didn't read this at the time, but have come to this book later, and this is one that I think is brilliant. I love this. But also reading it, it's very clearly a sort of, I hate to use the word like quasi-sequel, because it's not, but it's a sort of a thematical sequel in many ways to Target 2006, I think. And as much as it's a love letter, it also feels like, sometimes in films, TV series, whatever, you can sort of squint and think, oh, that old thing is kind of a prequel to this, even though it's not. It kind of feels like, actually, if you didn't think too hard about it and sort of allowed your mind to kind of fill in the blanks, that actually all the stuff from Target 2006 could sort of be in the past nice thing to think. This, it feels like it could sort of work if you don't join the dots too much somehow. I
do know what you mean, and I can't say it personally about Last Stand of the Records, but I think that must be part of why it keeps getting kind of used as a sort of here, read this is a good, if you like Transformers, that's kind of squint factor means that if you kind of know anything, this will feel like it can kind of fit in Transformers.
It feels homey, and it's it's a lot of the same characters, but they as well, when they're introduced, they clearly have some sort of element of backstory that you're not necessarily privy to, and in your kind of mind's eye, this could almost be an alternate universe where their target 2006 was kind of, do you know what I mean? It sort of fits in that way to my mind.
That's a nice
anyway.
thing to say. That's a lovely thing to hear.
I think it absolutely works. And so it's funny hearing some of the backstory that actually maybe, the powers that be were like, this is kind of not what we want it to be, because reading it, actually going in was very much like, well, this is exactly what it needs to be. This is perfect, because
that's so nice to hear.
It's all the right characters. It's all the right feels and vibes and everything, and the kind of grit of it that makes it work thematically with those earlier works. So if you're already a fan, perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say as well, because this is one of those times where you guys as fans of the Transformers universe are then taking that and that kind of passion and love that you have for that, and that kind of like best love and respect to editor. You've got the corporate side, and then you've got you guys that are just like wanting to create something that people are going to love because you're in it. You're passionate about it. And that's the challenge that you've got as like a creative, isn't it? Where you're doing that.
Yeah, it is. Because I remember definitely feeling once James was on board, I did not want to seem petulant in front of him. Do you know, like, it's kind of as bad as it was, sort of like, not, I want to sort of like be professional within interacting with the editors. I was still sort of like, I'd hate for James to think that I'm some sort of like kind of diva or prima donna,
drama.
Like when it comes, totally, because it wasn't
that's good.
that. And so it was, but it was, so that was kind of nice when there was another set of eyes on, and it wasn't just James. There was other people in it, but like that's not. There's no sub story with Wreckers. This is just the story that kind of made it. It wasn't this like my struggle sort of thing, or or we stuck it to the dean at the end, and we got hoisted aloft on their shoulders. It's the push that Andy gave, for example, on Overlord was what ended up with the Megatron fixation. Was what
makes sense.
What brought him to that
carried over. The biggest, I think, the biggest battle we had probably was near the end when various people wanted different records to die.
It's so funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's when it gets really fanboyish.
We can talk about that in a minute, I guess. But that was, and also I think it's worth saying you and I, Nick, hadn't worked together before.
I know, it's so strange, isn't it?
People sometimes think, because we were both fans and in the fandom, and connected to the UK fan club, the unofficial one, Transmasters, that we'd collaborated, but we hadn't. We were just mates, and so this was the first time.
That feeling kind of continues in some ways, because I think we, Last Time the Records obviously leaves a big footprint, which is I'm very grateful for. But I think because of that, and just the fact that I was on more than MCI covers for so long, people think that kind of that we're more of a unit. Well, and I like it. It's been really good for me. So it's it's pros and cons for me, but no, it's been lovely.
Absolutely. It's like, I'm fully aware of that. Don't worry.
Who dis? New phone.
Well, that's very much how it was in late 2010, Jason. But do you remember? Like, you? I'm sure you've heard. It's probably more than CI James, but I imagine we've both heard it from people that, someone told me to read Last Stand, or this Last Stand was my entry point and stuff. And it's reading it today was because of the distance. So it was really nice to be able to go, because for years when people would sort of say, it's this or it's that, and this is how much we like it, I would kind of cringe inside. And I do, there's a lot of the art I don't love about it until issue 5, and then I sort of feel like, it's kind of, it's the story, the art storytelling. That bums me out a lot in it.
I don't know. You're being too harsh on yourself. Honestly, I started that first issue today, and I was sat there. I gave it a full reread this afternoon in preparation for this, and all the way through the first issue, especially, I was like, this art is great, honestly. Just visually tells a story perfectly. Just really easy to follow in a good way. If that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Very clear, and
it's very clean.
I do disagree, but I'm not the one that needs to sort of sell it to. So yeah,
I remember because of course I get the benefit of being a consumer when it comes to the art, and it gave me the same feeling, Nick, as reading issue 1 of Dragon's Claws did, Jeff Senior, Simon Furman.
Don't say that.
And and I remember thinking, because they're the best, and the two of them together is the best.
Yeah.
And reading seeing that first page of Dragon's Claws issue 1, and seeing the first few pages of Wreckers one, which is just
that's very
with
kind.
Josh as well.
Well, because that's what I do feel I have to say here. If that was the best time or whatever, but like it's Josh is like
Josh's colours are
an
great.
MVP. Like he's really like he's
incredible.
I often think of him as such a strong reason of the signature. He's the signature look almost for more than DCI, because he's the one who kind of set that with that palette and stuff, that really indie comic sort of got the textures. And so anytime there was like fill-ins or whatever, or going from me to Alex, and the colors made it look like you were reading the same. It was from the same place, and that's Josh's color choices. And back on Wreckers, I was less inky and less shadowy, so it was more open kind of line and less kind of heavy like black spaces, whatever. And just Josh's colors are just so tasty. Do you know what I mean? Like he's really lovely, they're really, really tasty, but it makes it all readable as well. Like he there's lots going on in that first issue with the assault on Garrus 9 and all those kind of different those different kind of generics in the compound, but like he makes them all look like they could have come from 1991.
It really does. He's nailed the sort of pink Turbo Master era
teals
aesthetic.
and stuff like that for sure. The flashes of green. Yeah.
So nice.
I was reading it at the time as it was coming out, and every time each issue was coming out, it's like, oh my god, this comic is so bright, compared to other comics.
It is.
It was like a different, like a breath of fresh air. Like the other stuff was also great, but it was like, whoa, it was just such a real stark contrast.
It's a really bright comic considering how like quote unquote dark it can be, So
structurally, it's a really odd comic, really, in the sense that they don't actually the records don't land they didn't get into Garrus 9 until the end of issue 2. You're 40% into the
You remember the reason for that, James, don't you?
Well, I remember that well, go on, you say, because I think it's to do with
it was to do it was to do with, at the time, so this kind of editorially mandated new continuity, and it was set after All Hail Megatron, and it had to be this situation where all the space bridges are gone. There could be no sort of like there'd been like teleportation from like planet hopping and things. There was a name on it, I can't remember, but there was very much established you can kind of beam from like planet to planet sort of thing. It was, and it had been the space bridge network was gone, so we need to find a way to make it work. So in one of the original treatments of draft, they get there really quick, and it was explained to us they can't get there that quick because that's not possible. And I was like, yeah, but we could get there to the planet by issue 2 if we do that. And it was really now, as it is, that's what like issue 2 I think is the issue. I've said this before. I think like James is like the king of issue 2. The issue 2s, like, and he's great at first issues and being there, but like it's issue 2 where it sort of beds down after the sort of like it's when sort of the I don't know, I guess the meat rises to the top. Is that what meat does? And it's and you can sink your teeth into it.
In Scotland,
when it's still alive, maybe.
You know what I mean, right? So it's so it's like it's James's input on issue 2 and that downtime they have on the ship.
I'm not agreeing with the nice things are nice. I'm not agreeing with that. I'm just saying that issue 2 did give us that space to get to know them.
Scene setting.
For sure.
But
it was very. I remember talking to John Barber about it later on. It turns out he was someone. He ended up like editing Transformers and writing one of the other ongoings. He remembers like reading. He mentions the story an awful lot in like the old Star Wars RPG books, guidebooks. When you're trying to sort of figure out like how long does it take for like a character's ship to get from A to B. It takes. What did he say, James? It takes as long as
as long as it needs to take. As long as it needs to take
to make the story interesting.
So the journey,
which is
brilliant.
Because I remember he commented on that because during Sins of the Wreckers. I remember talking to him about it, saying, "Well, what about this?" And he's saying, "Don't worry about that."
So I have a question though, because another way that this series kind of feels like it ties in with certainly the old Target 2006 stuff for me is that it's kind of got a. Forgive me for saying, but like an old Ghostbusters and new Ghostbusters feel to it, in that you've got the old crew, the old team, Springer and Impactor and all of those guys, and then of course you're bringing in your newer characters who obviously happen to be a lot of the Euro G1 bots and things like this. And was that like a conscious thing to kind of have the old crew based off the Target 2006 lot, and then minus a few faces, and then have this sort of new younger team coming in and have them sort of be people that had never been associated with being Wreckers before? Was that like by design?
No, I don't think so, because when I was asked was I going to do a record series. The records had already been established in the IDW continuity, starting from Stormbringer. So, and it was pretty much the Target 2006 crew, bar Rack and Ruin. Like Scoop was kind of maybe he was there. It's always fuzzy whether Scoop is a wrecker or not. And then those same quote unquote wreckers had appeared in All Hail Megatron together, but I don't think they were really named as wreckers. They were just so. By that stage, yes, Perceptor had become this kind of badass sniper, and Cup had become this rejuvenated kind of figure, and he was with Springer. So Springer is the leader of the wreckers. The Jumpstarters weren't in All Hail Megatron, but they were wreckers, and there was no reason not to have them. But you can tell, as far as I remember, they're not on the front cover of issue 1. Jumpstarters aren't, because it was the roster hadn't been nailed down by the time we needed the cover to solicit it. So, and for the same reason, Iron Fist doesn't have his bullet hole in the head on issue 1, cover issue 1, because that hadn't been nailed down. But Iron Fist was there from the start. By the time James kind of came on board, the crew had been selected. So we knew we brought back the Jumpstarters because they were wreckers originally, and they were wreckers in the W continuity, classic wreckers, and they were the only kind of like holdovers we could bring with us to make them feel like there's more than just Springer and Perceptor. And because Perceptor isn't a wrecker, he's there as with Ultra Magnus, he's a science guy. Cup isn't a wrecker. He's very much not a wrecker. And that's another reason why Ultra Magnus was in the story as well, is because of the whole issue with the transportation restraints we were given, that the wreckers couldn't have. Just to hop around from place to place, there had to be resources were limited within the universe. Ultra Magnus was their lift, their dad dropping them off. So that was kind of it. And then for the new wreckers, then it was a case of like, well, who do you bring in? And like the kind of gold standard are like Roadbuster and Whirl as sort of like two odd toys that no one really quite recognizes. They're odd fits, but they'll make good wreckers. And they were never like Impactor was the expendable one in the original wreckers. He was the one that was born to die for that series, which is why I made sure not to kill. We made sure not to kill him, and he wasn't killed. He didn't die in Sins of the Wreckers either, because Simon says, if it's been done before, don't do it again. He's the sure thing. He's the only sure thing really. All throughout. So then after that, it was like, who do we recruit? But we knew that Mike Acosta on the ongoing was going to be using all the kind of the G1E kind of cartoon sort of the TV show guys, and same with the Bumblebee series too. And there was actually Don Figueroa had been designing, because he was the artist on the ongoing series. He had designed like a whole new cast for those, and including Cup, because I think Cup was slated to show up in the ongoing, or at least Don had wanted him to. So he came up with a design for Cup, and then I sort of asked, could we do a bit of horse trading? And it's like, has that been written yet? Is it in stone? Is he needed? And the editorial were able to sort of say, no, you can have Cup, because I was able to say, look, it makes more sense. It adds a bit of emotional weight between Springer and it's the Springer rescued back in Spotlight Cup, but also because once I knew that I was going to introduce Guzzle into it, I wanted there to be a little bit of, there's going to be more of it on the page in Last Stand of the Wreckers, but there just wasn't room. That some of Guzzle's best mates died saving Springer. Including like Fizzle and Sizzle. That's why Fizzle and Sizzle die. And yeah, again, credit to Andy. All credit to Andy. He was pretty good at sort of saying, you don't need to be the continuity Band-Aid here. Do you know, like what I was bending over backwards in early drafts to sort of make sure, Simon's story connects to Shane McCarthy's story, and that will connect to Mike's after we've done our bit. And it's really good advice, and I'm glad that was taken to. It just bugged me that we were on a planet that held Shockwave, Scorponok, Bludgeon, and Grimlock, and we don't meet them. That really bugged me. And so like it's kind of, so we do meet Shockwave briefly, and that was a good way to kind of write out. And it gives Overlord and Shockwave, Overlord someone to talk to who's kind of on his level. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of like nice. He like respects And we were able, but I felt it was important to acknowledge, like if you're on this planet with Grimlock locked up somewhere, he's surely like, he's one of those sort of like black hole singularity characters that draws attention to him. You have to at least acknowledge that he's not there. Like, so we wrote that into it too.
But you originally intended for him to be there, didn't you?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I really wanted, but like that would have been the wrong thing. Same with Scorponok. Scorponok was going to be a proper second tier, and this is well before James came in. I think there was never I think once James was on board, James, I don't think it was ever any sort of discussion of like, how do we write Scorponok into it? I think by that stage he had been voted out, I think, right?
Yeah, we were worried about how we were going to explain his absence. Yeah, because
and that was important to me because Verity was going to be going to the planet, and like she had just lost Hunter O'Neill, her friend from Earth, and like through Scorponok's doings, so she was going with a revenge. There's like a page, like you can see it in the collected material. It's like it's written out, like it's storyboarded out of like Verity saying that's the reason she stowed away. Like that, but that's ultimately we have to come up with a different reason. But the real reason she stows away initially, at least it's that's the sort of framework that like James is coming on board. Is sort of like all the beats were kind of there, but a lot of like the motivations and kind of plot and stuff like that definitely needed. So it would have been a kind of a very you could have told similar story visually, but it wouldn't have had the same intricacies and lovely little twists and kind of like the clock pieces getting together.
Yeah. I mean, you and I did cook up new stuff together after, when we started working together on.
For sure, that's what I'm saying. But it wasn't until you like this stuff that it's it's very definitely. Well, obviously the big plot point with Aquitas is very much like from your end to it, but I remember saying at the time that like I think Last Stand of the Records, if it had gone on without James and some of the stuff I'd done had gotten in under approval, I still think it would have been good, but I don't think it would be talked about. I don't think it would have hit. It would have like the what James like brings to it in terms of like character depth and like the motivations and just in this dialogue and stuff, So it's kind of it's the stuff that like sets out the stall for his work with More MCI, I think, the sort of like and Chaos Theory immediately afterwards, So it's it's special stuff. It's good stuff. I mean, like I really am like lucky to. I wish he wasn't here to hear this, but I wish this was his eulogy, and like I was sort of like leaning my cup of tea on the box and stuff like that. So, but
I hope I die. I hope I die very soon now.
So do we all, James.
I hope I die.
That would be an episode 100 to remember, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know.
When's this coming out? Because
next week on our Patreon.
Right. Well, I've got a few days then.
Yeah.
Have a spectacular.
Tragedy. Like boxes.
He's like Iron Fist. He dies on the way back to his home planet at the end.
I've been poochied.
a woman in boxer shorts weeping over him as he died as he lived.
Oh dear.
But yes, I wanted to put the records. I wanted to be like, pick from the toy box, and so there was like a long list of kind of characters, and they were all that sort of that sweet spot of 1991 era characters that never had any kind of like character, any sort of like or representation in any of the official media. Really,
that must have been fun because it
was fun.
A lot of those characters, like you say, the Predators, Skyquake, all of those guys. To me, even seeing characters like Stalker, I know his whole scene with the torture and everything was brilliant because I had that toy in 1991 or whatever it was. 93 actually, I think those guys, weren't they? And I loved that toy so much. And so to see it sort of finally in a comic was maybe 92 actually. Yeah,
they were 92 because the other guys for the Pyro's 93. Yeah, so
Pyro's 93.
Because back then Transformers was quote unquote over, and then it wasn't. And then this weird relaunch comes along with like Rotorstorm basically is the Jetfire to the new Autobot cars and the truck leader. Do you know what I mean? Like he was their air guardian sort of thing, and you're just like, these guys are like that toy. I mean, you've talked about it enough, but like Rotorstorm is just an inspirational toy. Like he's
great toy,
but like a great toy and a
greatest light piping ever.
Greatest light piping ever. Liam, you mentioned something earlier about the reference to Bret Hart. Yeah. So because Rotorstorm's got like the pink wraparound shades like Bret Hitman Hart. So there's a reference. Verity refers to him as Hitman at one stage. So yeah.
That totally went over my head. I even read that and I was like, Hitman? And now you say it, I feel like a fool.
Yeah, because she's a sassy mid-aughts, pop culture, Joss Whedon-esque sort of kind of old guys writing young people. Just those characters have never been used, and so I wanted to use them. But Guzzle was the pick from like existing G1 because I wanted to kind of have that connection to Sizzle and Fizzle. And
that makes sense.
I met James Roberts for the second time in the May 2010 when he and his partner came over to visit us, and he presented me with a little figure of Guzzle. You brought me your old Guzzle.
Didn't I?
Yeah. I didn't have, and the Guzzle I had was not intact, and so my intact Guzzle comes from the Roberts collection. So yeah.
It's a hard one to find.
The second
intact.
time we met IRL. First time
Second time
2000.
First time 2001 at the
9 years earlier.
Transforce. Yeah, it was 9 years between meeting each other. Yeah, and we were talking quite frequently. But also when it comes to the collaboration thing as well, there was no smartphones back then.
No, of course.
So WhatsApp wasn't a thing, and so we'd have to call each other on landlines and be really like parsimonious on our like phone calls and call after a certain hour. And does it fit in then? And we were heavy users of Google Chat, weren't we? We have like
whatever it was.
G-Chat.
The little
Google
sidebar messaging
sidebar thing where the instant
like
messenger
MSN,
on Google.
Like
That's the one.
And that was like talking into the night because we were both men of stamina back then. So
back then, not now, where my bones are gone, all the bone marrow's disappeared.
Well, I'm tired tonight because my little boy woke at 4 a.m. with a nightmare. Yesterday, last night, but coincidentally, he started reading Last Stand of the Records yesterday for the first time.
I was going to say, was his nightmare about Overlord?
He wouldn't tell me.
He's giant lip.
But he did talk to me today that he said it was really bad when Rotor Storm died, and he was really upset.
I'm
really tired, Dad.
Yeah, we were going to talk about this because I am not letting my son read this, and he's seen Jaws, right? But he's not reading this because guys,
that's
come
a compliment.
on, this is there's a lot of
Sins of the Records. Skip Last Stand. Go straight. He'll be able for Sins of the Records much easier.
Sins will do some real damage.
I know. This is not my Transformers.
Complimentary.
The hubcap moment lives in my head rent free forever.
Too much pink goop.
It's funny,
horrible.
isn't it? But like that, but like all the characters that died. But first of all, characters had to die in this story. There had to be consequences.
Of course, yeah.
I do feel bad.
Die, Nick.
Listen, Jason. Have you read any of Simon Furman's comics? If we're going to do a Furman pastiche, do we have people have to die?
True. All right.
And you guys were brave in that you actually killed a lot of. Some of them are new characters in the respect of like they've not appeared in fiction before, but they had toys. I think is the key thing. So they show up, and you think, oh, we're going to see this. I know they're dead. And that was kind of the mad thing. And like Rotor Storm was one of them for me, where it was like, finally, Rotor Storm, here we go.
He's my favourite as well. He is my favourite.
That day on Tumblr and those things, when that, because it's when those books were coming out. That's the kind of like dates it for me. Is every month it was like the excitement of like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? And you'd look at Tumblr, and it was just like people having breakdowns, and it's like, oh my gosh, this guy is dying.
Liam, that's what it felt like to us. But it's interesting to hear like your side of it as like a reader at the time. Feel that described the same thing. James and I weren't on Tumblr. I wasn't. I never was anyway. I'm not sure if you were at that stage. But for us, it was the IGW message boards.
And
it
was on there too.
Yeah, and I guess we had
that's
more
how we gauge people's reactions pre-Twitter as well.
I remember the first issue coming in and just not being able. I've never experienced it since, really. Because
as a reader, I don't think there's ever been a book that I've read like it, particularly in Transformers, where it was just like. Because most stories, they basically just tell a story. But here it was like you're just throwing in so many exciting things we'd never seen. And then it was very quickly established that everybody's death was on the table. So it was like every issue, it was like you couldn't wait for the next one because you were so desperate to see what happened because you were pulling characters and things. And there were so many things coming in, like the Equator stuff. And you were like, what's that?
We laid a lot of stuff into it. I mean, the thing is, the uninitiated would say that Transformers is about war and it's a civil war and every story is inherently warlike, but that isn't, as we all know, that isn't true. With Wreckers is a war story, it's and as you'd expect because it's a commando team, and so we wanted it to be sort of old school 2000 AD style. We mentioned Target 2006, we mentioned the UK comic, and those are the principal touchstones, but it's also it's got a kind of British 80s comic sensibility in that it's compressed storytelling. It is very warlike. And then I remember when we were talking about it, Nick, and I know we've talked about it post-publication, but at the time we were writing about it, we were conscious that it was about, the shorthand version of it was about a story about red shirts, wasn't it? That's what we used to say. It was about, it's if an episode of Star Trek, if the camera, followed well, actually lower decks almost. If it followed the so-called minor characters and saw what they got up to. So it was a war story. It focused on the red shirts, so we knew people had to die. I take your point that if you until you got into the thick of the story, you didn't know what the stakes were until because Rotorstorm dies in issue 3.
Yeah.
That's a really early
first of the gang to die.
Yeah, and he's he's been pitched as one of the major new characters, isn't he? And he's got the way he's written. He's got all the hallmarks of a kind of Hot Rod-esque.
Yeah,
he's brash, he's impetuous, and he's funny, and he's charismatic. And you think even if you don't consciously think it, subconsciously you're like, well, he'll make it till the end. And so it was killing him off in that way that early was designed to send a signal, really, wasn't it?
It makes perfect sense.
Anything can happen.
Immediately after a joke as well, like the whole records combined thing. Yeah. It's such an iconic moment, like that whole going back to that time. Yeah. Just remember that whole internet sound. And I think that's probably the most fun, like reading comics on the, with the internet crowd all together. Everybody the praise was so glowing. Everybody
collective endeavor, wasn't it?
Yeah, everybody was enjoying it because there's so much stuff we take for granted now with these characters. Like we know who they are and we see them and other things.
Well, that's true.
But at this time, it was all so new. It's great.
Even the way, because you mentioned the joke he made, that was calculated on our part as well, wasn't it, Nick? That was a designed sort of rug pull.
Yeah.
Because again, the wisecracks are normally a kind of plot armor, but it was to show that it's not that type of story.
Yeah. Makes total sense. The bit that got me with him actually was the bit where you get the little scene of him sort of showing actually that he's not as confident as maybe
when he's prepping the pod.
Yeah. And that was the bit that sort of, if anything, I think deceived me, was because I was like, okay, there's more to this guy than just the jock, if you will. And we're going to see some of that. Oh no, we're not.
Yeah, dead.
Yeah. He was the first one to mark to die from minute one and stuff.
It makes sense.
Just because of the order that things kind of had to happen in the story. In every iteration, he was first to go. But the thing I was going to say a second ago is I think one of the things that people seemed to enjoy at the time was the pacing of it and the kind of the amount of content again, of material that we were kind of able to squeeze in. And we were definitely coached by Andy, like another very good point in his favor, but we didn't meet his standards of it. But like he was trying to get us to sort of like reduce the amount of speech balloons on the page. Do you remember that, James, and stuff? And the amount of words per balloon?
Maximum six panels, maximum speech balloons per panel 3, maximum sentences per speech balloon 3.
Oh, wow.
See, that makes so much sense within the context of the time, because on the IDW boards at the time, one of the major complaints about the ongoing was it was so much talking heads and lots of speech bubbles, whereas when this came out, it was like the opposite. The contrast was
because
so stark,
because we didn't, not that we didn't follow it wasn't sort of like, hey, screw you, mister. It was we what's on the page is a compromise, because we tend to, and I think I won't say it for James, but I overwrite when I'm on my own,
so, me too. Definitely,
that's why I didn't say it for you.
Well, the proof is in both of our subsequent work.
Yeah, for sure.
Not just in terms of the number of words, but just the compressed storytelling style. We pack a lot in.
Yeah,
definitely.
So,
yeah,
we do.
But sometimes, and to give Andy his due, I mean, it disciplined us, and we did. As Nick said, what you see is a compromise. So there was fat that we trimmed. And it made us, even more than we otherwise would have done, it made us really, each line had to count. It was properly weighted and had to
economical storytelling.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I didn't notice it so much reading it today. But I remember at the time when seeing the print versions and seeing, like some panels, James only might have like 2 balloons in them, and based on the other stuff that we write, like separately. I'm writing, doing stuff I'm doing at the moment, and it's like I wish I could, edit. But maybe we should work together more often. I don't know, but it's weird because I do think when we did the G.I. Joe or the Nothing Will Ever Be the Same, the Revolution crossover, it's kind of
everyone's favorite.
Yeah, it's our favorite. Bring us on to talk about that. But like we really, it was nice to be back again and kind of like finishing each other's sandwiches. Yeah.
I do think The sort of lack of wordiness around it, though, it does benefit the style of the story as well. There's a pace to it. And like, for example, when Springer and all his guard come in for the first time, there's a sort of feeling of motion. They feel like they're walking and talking almost.
Yeah.
And it kind of carries through. You never kind of feel like you're hanging around for sort of a big
and you feel like you're in the story as well. Like when James was saying about it being it's a war story, you kind of feel like a war correspondent in the thick of it with them.
So true.
The way each panel moves and the story moves along, because it's a lot of things sort of tend to focus on exposition, whereas here it's all done with the characters interacting and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. You kind of feel like you're in the thick of it with them. It's amazing. Really well done.
Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. Once we get into Garrus 9, that's it, isn't it? There's a couple of flashbacks. But that's one of them is within the prison, and then the other one, I think, the only thing which happens outside, other than the epilogue, is the flashback to Squadron 117, isn't it?
Yeah,
and Squadron X.
There is each issue starts with a flashback apart from issue 5.
Yeah.
Issue 5 is told sort of like completely linearly until the
straight
flashback.
Into it, isn't it?
But there is it was kind of, it was a time around, it was a post Lost world. So you have to sort of start your story with a flashback. So it's but it is. I found reading it today, issue 3 felt very immersive, which I couldn't. I sometimes sort of think issue 3 and 4, not a bad way, but they blend a little bit. It's that point of the story which feels like it's one big chapter together. But issue 3 today felt like it's just post Overlord's or post Rotorstorm's death. You're sort of like when they're dealing with it. I think there might be a misattributed speech balloon in it. And that's made it through multiple. Yeah, but it's made it through multiple because like the version, as far as I know, that is out there now, that's in the hardback version anyway. Or it definitely, even in the trade, is a remastered version. It's like I went back and kind of like re-inked little bits, and kind of Josh kind of cut like not as much as I'd like, but more than would normally be allowed, So just the kind of stuff that was niggling me. It's a bit where it's after Rotorstorm dies, and someone asks, and I think Verity asks, "Did you know him well?" And Twin Twist sort of says, I think it's Topspin that's talking, but I think it should be Iron Fist is talking.
Well, he says I didn't really like him.
Yeah. But he said he's only just met him, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like It's kind of so. And Verity knows that Topspin has only just met him, so she wouldn't say, "Did you know him long?" Do you know?
Yeah. If and when we get the deluxe Skybound Image, omnibus edition, we can finally fix that.
Absolute
finally fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I could be wrong about the misattribution, but it's just jumped out at me today.
It rings a vague bell.
Yeah. So that was the casting list. That's how we did it. Yeah, just kind of, and Overlord as well. A lot of it was necessity. There needed to be a big bad guy, and who was kind of being used, who wasn't being used, and I just thought of the wonderful toys that I got at Christmas in 1992 and 91. Like
how much you wanted to kill them.
Yeah.
Just recreate your youth.
Yeah, I did wonder if Overlord was like a Euro link as well. Because obviously he came out here in that context, and it is quite weird that opening scene, with him and Skyquake and everything, because it really does immediately.
It's
you're like,
of a time, isn't it?
There's all these toys, It's very cool.
The Shaman is playing in the background. It's
almost as if if the UK comic had continued, it wouldn't have been long before. Yeah, those
Eddie
are the type.
Vedder has just invented grunge.
It's New Seattle sound.
Definitely. So that's it. And the same with even the location. It was about trying to find a sort of a kind of gap in the continuity to sort of set a story and kind of find a reason why there would be wreckers and give them a mission. So that was all kind of part of it as well. Of kind of like I definitely was still to. And James taught me a lot, I think, about being brave and owning things, and about like sort of like, well, we're writing it, we can make things up, Like, but so Garrus 9 was already established in the IDW continuity as a prison and had like its own kind of concepts in it, and had like spark extraction and thing. That was a big thing in Simon's kind of writing, and that was a big thing in one of the early drafts as well, about like spark extraction, because that was how they were originally held prisoner there, like it's kind of weird. And there's going to be lots of tomfoolery, because I love the whole disguise thing, and like things are not as they seem in Transformers, and so the spark extraction thing was going to be a big deal, where sparks were going to be implanted in characters, and you don't know who you're talking to, sort of thing. So once they get split up and they come back, are they talking to who they think they are, sort of thing, And so I think I saw one of my original notes today is that Impactor was going to be a Decepticon from the start. He was a Decepticon that escaped from Garrus 9.
Interesting.
To appear.
That's interesting.
Yeah. As the leader of the Wreckers too. This is before the Pova thing and before like his war crimes and stuff, like, or before like the actual Autobot Impactor atones for his war crimes and stuff.
So is this where you then use this James later in More Than Meets the Eye and The Lost Light, when you had characters borrowing bodies and stuff, swapping sparks?
Oh, the body gloving and stuff.
Yeah.
I possibly. I think that was probably inspired by one of the Red Dwarf novels. I think when when Rimmer inhabits someone else's body, possibly. But I do. Nick talking about that has reminded me of his very early ideas packed breakdowns.
Yeah, and it was.
Stuff.
It was like and I mean this in the best possible way. It's quite possible that you're the Harold Ramis, James, to my Dan Aykroyd, because Dan Aykroyd,
he's dead.
Yeah, and you will be soon as well. So we decided that
in the next few days. Yeah.
But like Dan Aykroyd's draft and treatment for Ghostbusters was famously a fucking mess, and Harold Ramis introduces the kind of the humanity and the kind of the direction and the focus to it and stuff.
I know that when we got into it, because you mentioned before about owning things, and we didn't know if we were going to do anything. I certainly didn't know if I was going to do anything else after this, and you had more credits to your name.
Yeah, but I was in a huff after record, so I didn't do any more.
But our kind of experience of getting records off the ground, as described earlier, meant that we couldn't be sure of anything happening afterwards, and that's also the nature of the business, isn't it too? Mm-hmm. So at some point, I know we were both kind of thought, well, let's just put as much in as we can. Let's take every opportunity we can.
Oh, I definitely remember that part of it.
It shows.
That was a huge part of it.
Yeah. And it extended to kind of conceptual stuff, even if, we didn't know whether we'd ever have an opportunity to expand on an idea. We'll put it in there, or we'll put in a reference to some event. And I think through that, we found a way to kind of flesh out the world, our kind of records world.
But James is really good at kind of like throwing away like little like names to something or events that makes them sound like they're super important, and like you can see
like the DJD and things.
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Well, that's me.
That was Nick.
That was yours. Okay.
I wrote
TM UK.
I wrote I wrote the Decepticon Justice Division, and then they were used as a plot point then later on. So, but like stuff like the Gideon's glue and the kind of the like morph course, like he's brilliant at like just honing in on something that I'm sure he has maybe he has. I'll ask him someday. Given huge thought to it, but they sound plausible and weighty, and they anchor the story nice and realistic. But while we are giving credit, the Wreckers Combine is James's. That is, I have to say, that blistering line. Wreckers Combine is James's. So, yeah.
That's very gracious.
I think we said it before. I think that's been said before, so I don't mind reiterating it, because it's a hell of a moment and a hell of a line. So yeah.
Well, in the spirit of reciprocity, but I mean, one of the many things Nick brings to the party is just this very kind of gut punchy, visceral, thrilling kind of story beat thing. So you get and you can see it absolutely not just in Last Stand, but in the two sequels as well, where like I want this to land in the positive way I mean it, but it's
let's go. Let's go.
Here we go.
There we go.
But it's so in a very childlike way, by which I mean, like you feel like a kid. You feel that excitement you had when you really got into this stuff originally. You were reminded of why, in this instance, Transformers is so fantastic, because there's something Nick can tap into, like the kind of fundamental DNA of this franchise, and you can just it's like being 10 years old again, and that thrill is what I think, that's what gives the story shape.
That's so nice. Damn, it's much better than my thing.
That was really
good. It's like
actually,
when you've got stakeout drop kicking.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the this isn't a deleted scene from Wreckers. This isn't the sequel. But it's that type of like it's like an elevator pitch. It's like, okay, look, there's this bit happens, bang. if you want to see what leads up to it and what happens afterwards, then commission this story. It's that kind of really
yeah.
It's a set piece.
That
stuff.
could be part of the visual side of it, possibly just because I kind of.
I'm sure you're
drawing it too.
Yeah,
you're a ridiculously visual writer too, though. Like it's when it comes to
our scripts were very screenplay, weren't they?
Yeah, but it's like anytime I've drawn one of yours, stuff like that, you're very much like you kind of know your angles and stuff. You know where the reader wants to go and stuff. Like it's kind of, and it's very like for someone who professes not to be a drawer, you do kind of you've got a director's eye, so it's good. Yeah, so that's us being nice to each other. That's what people like, isn't it?
I'll tell you something we haven't talked about yet. The trade paperback, and again, it's symptomatic of A, how enthusiastic Nick and I were, B, how much we loved the thing we'd made, and C, not knowing whether we get any more work. We did tons of extra stuff for that.
Also, D, we didn't have very small children.
That's true. Yes, we had
no risk.
Free time.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah, and so we packed it with stuff that we made for free, didn't we? The records trade.
We did. I was really sort of jealous because James was able to, like.
Oh, it's easier to write stuff.
That's what I was trying to say that in without it seem like one of my hilarious lashes of a handbag at you, but it was, it is. It's kind of the outlay of drawing a page compared to writing, but it was great. Yeah, it was so nice to be able to do that. Like it was. I think the older we got, I'm not sure I would do it now. Do you know what I mean? And I feel bad about that.
No, same.
Mm-hmm. I do feel bad about that.
It's interesting though, because that extra material, I mean, like Bullets is a good example, obviously, where so much of that though leads into stuff later down the line as well. Like it introduces so much
essential, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and very much a cornerstone. And Rung is in there, and
it's really surprising.
The thing with
how many
Bullets
seeds are sown,
and this again, this is early days stuff, but before doing stories professionally, as Nick knows, as we all know, I do fanfic stuff, and most of my fanfic stuff, outside of a couple of strips, was prose things. And so the novelty post records, preparing stuff for the trade, novelty of being able to do what I used to do, but this time it counts. Like this time it's canon, it's official. So I guess I was always gonna, exploit that in the nicest way.
How did you feel writing in prose? Official prose and knowing that eyes were going to be on it.
Yeah, so I mean, you can be, just because you're, to the extent that I am skilled at scripting comics, doesn't necessarily correspond to being able to write prose and vice versa. So I didn't know how it was going to be received. The good thing I think about prose stuff, and I could be wrong, this is just a gut instinct, is I don't think it's subject to the same levels of scrutiny as comic strips, because why? I guess because maybe there's something less immediate about it. And anyway, even to this day, I meet people at conventions that, or there'll be something, some tweet or something about a plot point that happened in a text story, as we used to call them, and other people will say, well, what issue's that in? I've never, these are people that have read more than meets the eye, but they skip.
And you go, do you call yourself a fan? That's a real shame, because James has gotten like a name for being quite inclusive and stuff. And when he does things like that, it really sets us all back.
Tells him to fuck off.
It was when he started selling those T-shirts.
Well, yeah.
I'm all right now because woke has ended now. Apparently, so. And also with text, with prose stuff, you kind of get more freedom as well. I mean, there's that cliche about, it's the poor artist. The scripter can just say, oh, well, there's a crowd of 1,000 people and then 400 spaceships. When you're doing that in a text story, that's fine. You're not beating anyone else up with that detail. So it's but we did Bullets. We did the Mosaic, Nick, which was a one-page
Dead Man's Boots,
Dead Man's Shoes.
Yeah. And I think that's why and then there was the other. For the hardback, I can't remember what the names of the hardback.
God, yeah. We did
0 Point.
0 Point, yeah.
0 Point. And I did In Thoughts and Deed, which is a Verity story, and then I can't remember the name of the guzzle. And then, but I think I was very much like, I'm writing 2 comic strips this time because James is writing another one. So
and the readers won. So
exactly.
We did.
I really wanted to cement the idea that that Impactor and Guzzle were just tearing up the galaxy and just like
kind of cool.
broing it up and in a not very healthy or helpful way, sort of thing. So I wasn't sure if Sins of the Wreckers at that stage was going to be happening, or if they'd be in it, or or anything like that. So I really thought we'd have had a chance to revisit these characters by then. So I definitely wanted that to be part of the story. So
Has that material ever been collected outside of the trade?
The hardback trade? I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to be in the. It's not in the collected. The G1
anyway. Definitive.
Dead Man's Boots is, but Bullets isn't. And some of the
too many words. Too many words.
So many words, especially for people who buy Partworks, James. You think they can read?
Yeah, I bought those. I can't read that.
This is exactly the sort of audience we're talking about.
Look, I understand.
So many words.
Do you think maybe someone was just a big Skyfall fan and they really objected to him being inserted as the villain of the piece?
Skyfall stan.
That was how it was for me, because I had the Skyfall toy as a kid.
Yeah,
he's a big favourite of mine.
He's a nasty character.
I always saw him as a good guy. So it was a real revelation where it was like, oh, he's actually...
But he's one of those toys as well that you look at it and you can
cool
feel yourself falling into this guy's got backstory. He's got main character, but no, he's got main character look to him, doesn't he? Like I can't, so I didn't. Yeah. I was responsible for any of his fiction and stuff, but as a visual character, I remember being like, when I'm reading it, it's like, oh, I wish I was drawing Skyfall. So
yeah. And actually, that reminds me the Swedish edition. Well, because in Sweden they're publishing a lot of IDW stuff. Nick and I, our era, and they've collected records, and that had Bullets in it translated, and that was illustrated, wasn't it, by Ed Perry? I want to say
Ed, and did Winston do one as well? Did Winston?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I'm sorry. I know Ed definitely did one. I'm sorry. And while we're at it, like a shout out to HDE, who's a letterer on it, and Sean Noller for putting together the mosaic, and Chris Carter colored it, and we had so many honorary rookie records and stuff, that are
rookie
part
records.
of the team as well. Like Joanna Lafuente was on color assists on the main book as well. I think
it's a lot of people in there.
So we did. There was lots of kind of extra, especially for the freebie sort of stuff, because IDW weren't putting that through their production house. So that had to be kind of done. Yeah. People were very kind to sort of give their time because they liked it. Because, and I think it's the fanishness, and that's the other thing that Wreckers is about. Like my little boy was reading Wreckers yesterday, and he was really overcome by Iron Fist as a character who likes, and it was so great to see a 9-year-old sort of get that, and saying, I love how geeky he is about the Wreckers and stuff like that.
I think that's another way. I know I keep going back to this point, but I think that's another way it feels like a sort of weird, sort of meta sequel almost to Target 2006. Is the whole Fistotron thing and his love of those original escapades, and the way that
did he imagine Target 2006?
Well, exactly. The way that
his fanfic. Yeah,
the way there is a sort of not so much an unreliable narrator thing, but the way that you discover obviously that events are not as he knows them even. Do you know what I mean? So there is that sort of element of doubt about some of the stories he's heard and that kind of stuff. So I don't know, it all lends itself in my mind. I was really reading it just thinking, this could sort of work in that way. But it's
one of the nicest things that anyone could say. Sixo is comparing it to that, because anytime I kind of pick up Target 2006 still, that's it. I'm reading it seriously. Like it's such a warm hug of a comic, and because it's so well done, every minute,
it really is well done.
Actually, just very quickly harking back to the interview that Simon did with you guys, it was really interesting him acknowledging something I have thought as a kid but never put into words, but how the ending is not the best part of Target 2006. That Aftermath issue was him just going, I've run out of road here, and it's still an elegant way to tie it up, but it's not. But none of the big heart pounding stuff and the visuals and
do you know that I remember that bit of the chat with Simon so well on the pod, because I remember him saying it and just going, the ending isn't kind of my favourite bit, because it's a bit,
I couldn't believe he said that.
I sort of got stuck with it, and then I was like, oh well, I guess they have to use clones and kind of all of this and sort of paint them up like decoys or whatever. And I remember him saying it, and it really struck me because it had never occurred to me that it was that written in that way, or that it was a flaw of the story before.
I agree. I remember knowing that I didn't love that last issue, as in, or didn't make me feel the same way. Right. And then the older I got, I was sort of like, well, look, it's the last part. It has to be wrapped up somehow. Yeah. And then it was genuinely saying, well, it wasn't until Simon saying that sort of like, and him being cool about it too. You know, he wasn't beating himself up over it because he was very much sort of like, he's like laughing. He's like, listen. And it was lovely. It was really freeing almost as a reader as well to go, oh yeah.
So we thought that.
So, forgive me. So I haven't heard his I will go back and listen to it. So what was his, well, I always really liked the way they defeat Galvatron in Tiger 2006. You know, the tricking him into thinking is amazing.
I think so too. But I think it's more so it's the last issue. I think it's the the tie-up with the Unicron thing, and the kind of sort of then this, and he just feels it's a little bit, but it's still all quite elegant though. Do you know, like it's still all
that's got him back to his death in it, isn't it? It's issue 18.
I know. Yeah. It's weird, and that's the big. Yeah. That's quite a big moment, guys. It's true, actually, isn't it? But I do think about at the finale. I do think about it separately. That's really weird, but they're very much the same issue, aren't they? Yeah.
It was just a strange kind of revelation in the moment to sort of, I don't know, I suppose not really change your paradigm on someone's work, because it hasn't changed my opinion of the work at all. But it was strange to hear him critiquing himself and to sort of put it into my appreciation of that story in a new context, sort of instantly, and then have to come out with something else to sort of say to him to not be like, oh God, you're right. Do you know what I mean?
It is, genuinely not shaming or trying to big anyone up, but James, it's a really good episode. It's some good some good Furman lore. So
So there have been other episodes of Triple Takeover, yeah?
There have.
Okay. Just a few,
99,
not many.
Okay, wow.
I used to say that about More Than Meets the Eye. I used to tell people I've only ever read issue 1 and issue 6. So.
Good art in those ones.
People signing, people handing me covers to sign. I'm like, is this still going?
Oh man, talk about the trade, weren't we? So 15 years seems impossible, really. 15 years seems a long time.
It is a long time.
And now that we are 2 continuities removed from that, it really makes it feel of its own era,
But I was at Thought Bubble last year, and it was a lovely experience. And anyone who you should go to Thought Bubble as a punter, and if you get a chance to table at it, you should do it.
Yeah, it's good.
And you've been there, Jason, right? Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Just the amount of people who wanted to talk about like James's work and like More Than Meets the Eye and stuff like that, but then tying it back into records, it still casts a shadow, which is. It's not that I don't know. It wasn't until today, because I so many people say nice things about Last Sound of the Records, and like I'm very sort of like, okay, I'm glad it works for you, sort of thing. But to me, it felt like a kind of an early work. I turned 30 finishing the script to issue 1, literally at midnight. I was writing it through at midnight, the final draft of issue 1. That's cool. And so I started it in my 20s and finished it like in my 30s.
That's mad.
So it feels, that's young. Those are young ages. I was a young man that wrote it, and so I've always felt very forgiving, but then feel that maybe the merit was there.
I can't tell you how great I think it is. Honestly, I think it's a quintessential Transformers story. I think it totally holds up.
Honestly, I still think it's one of the most sort of influential Transformers comics, because everything that's followed it's influenced in some way. There's very few. I don't know, comics I think that have really influenced Transformers as much as that has since
it's a weird one, isn't it?
Well, that's good.
It's weird. It feels like maybe in that way it's kind of that spiritual sequel to Target 2006 in some ways. That it kind of has.
It is.
It's evergreen enough, and hopefully it's accessible. But it's people who read it kind of like want to make more Transformers or read more Transformers. But I sure I've told you this story, James, and I've probably told it on the podcast as well. But I remember May Cat, who worked on Earthspark, the writer on Earthspark.
You did mention,
their first Transformers comic, her first Transformers comic was Last Sound of the Records, and it was pressed in their hands by Derek J. Wyatt, who said, "You have to read this."
Yeah,
wow.
See, there you go.
That's amazing.
Like stuff like that is mad, because Derek J. Wyatt, do you know what I mean?
There's no better compliment, really.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have given it to at least 5 different people.
And you said I know,
and it's a lot of people as well.
That's so lovely, Liam.
That aren't even Transformers fans. You normally go in with that thing like, I know you're not into Transformers, but read this.
Yeah,
this is the perfect book for that. And every single time they come back, go, "Oh my god, that's amazing! Is there more of this?" I was like, "Let me introduce you to the
There just might be,
yeah. Well, the mummy and daddy of this book split up, but they went and had children in different places. So. They still love each other very much, but they can't be in the same room very often because of the sexual tension.
every 9 years, that's all. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
true. Like Sigourney Weaver and James Cameron, apparently.
So when did we do?
Apparently so.
Oh well.
When did we do the Revolution issue? 2016.
Yeah.
So actually, this year we need to do something else. It's another 9 years.
Ooh, yeah. All right,
there you go. That's it.
The comics industry is in fine fettle, James. I think
never been. It's huge. It's growing. It's rapacious.
Yep. Let's get in there because there's a place for anyone to jump in and land. So So
was the Revolution issue the one where it's the mask characters?
Oh yeah.
The
named after snooker players.
You love it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. They were originally called Dennis Taylor and Steve Davis, but there was a Hasbro exec called Steve Davis. They thought it was a reference to him, so it had to be changed to Alex Higgins. So it's Alex Higgins versus Dennis Taylor.
Why
hasn't there been
so self-indulgent? It's one of my favorite things.
I love that.
We still wait for the SDCC Admin Force
exclusive
Admin
Force.
Where is that?
Yeah, where's my MP3 figure and Tommy Staples?
That we were talking earlier about that godlike power of being able to just toss out a reference to an event or to invent something and then it becomes canonized. That's how we felt playing in the Mask G.I. Joe sandpits. So we were like, well, there should be one called MP3, and there should be one called Blue Tick.
Blue Tick.
Blue Tick.
And I'm afraid we abused that. Fans of G.I. Joe, I'm sorry, we did abuse that power by creating Admin Force.
Well, I remember when we were making it, we were thinking the fans of Action Force are going to love this. They're going to love the universe.
Yeah, totally. They're not.
Yeah,
exactly. That's where I was.
What's it? The world's most colourful counter-terrorist organisation? That's a Nick line.
My friend at work, Rob, he references Admin Force at least once a month when we
Transformers.
Yeah. It's just a thing he
brings legacy
because we work in admin. So it's just a thing he references constantly.
Admin Force.
Right, I'm looking up Admin Force on the wiki.
So I'm just thinking after this episode that wiki's going to get a lot of updates. Some of them might be a bit.
So it's when they get introduced as G.I. Joe and they say gastrointestinal Joseph.
Here we go. So the members of Admin Force are Blue Tick, MP3, Startup. Sorry to laugh at my own. This is actually Nick's name, Tommy Staples.
Tommy Staples.
And webcam, of course.
Webcam, the best webcam. Love it. Oh, Tommy Staples. Oh, I wonder if I can change my
did you get many
name.
offers to write G.I. Joe after this?
Robert Kirkman, just wheeling up the truck.
Imagine when when code names are handed out in the pits or whatever. It's like, what am I, boss? You are Tommy Staples.
Tommy Staples.
Yeah. You've got a Ghostbuster called Podcast now, so why not have a G.I. Joe called Webcam,
And this is it. This is why satire is so difficult.
Well, we knew we were naming them.
True.
Oh dear. Anyway, we ended up laughing at our own jokes, so that's part of the course.
Tommy Staples got a line like I'm in a bind or I've been bound or
No, he's one of the sort of like my friends are off camera, just off.
Right, okay, we're never meeting him.
MP3 is working solo and
yeah. Tommy Staples is like the man in the van, I think. He's like
just waiting
Tommy
to get away.
Staples has got convictions.
Minor, stole a Big Mac.
He's got the highest fatality count of all the G.I. Joe.
Because he doesn't wash his hands. after he wipes.
Maybe he's a medic.
Yeah.
Maybe he just staples
People
people
with
together.
a staple gun.
Yeah, he's a filthy medic.
I just think because like Staples is a surname in Ireland.
Yeah.
I think his name is just Tommy
Actually,
Staples,
Tommy
and he's
Staples.
sort of like
Staples.
you know some wrestlers get to keep their own name, and he's like
he's got no
Tommy
time for this
Staples.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Made up
no,
code
exactly,
names. Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But then you also created a transformer called Dipstick. Can I point out?
Oh yeah, Dipstick.
Yeah.
Brilliant name.
That is a part of a car, though.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm aware, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
I know it is.
But then his lines were heavily edited because he originally was saying clutch munching piston liquor. They said that was one of the only few Hasbro notes was sort of like they can't say that.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Clutch munching.
Each word in isolation, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Turns out, put them together.
It's the combination.
It's one I'm proud of though. Like it's just the rhythm of it. It's that
people had T-shirts with that on, right?
Yeah, I think we both owned them. And I think Lady Rec online, she made
Lady
really nice, like in the Wreckers fonts, kind of like army green T-shirts. Or you can get them in Garrus 9 sky red sky colors. So you can get them in red or army green, saying clutch munch and piston liquor. And
Cool.
I can't fit into mine anymore. But I'm not as
15
twinky as I
years
used
ago,
to be. So,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was 29/30.
Exactly. Yeah. There are a few of those in here. I must admit, I recalled slightly at Die Slag Liquor. I don't know why there was something about that it was quite a visceral.
Yeah.
Coming out of an Action Master's mouth as well.
Yeah.
I imagined in 1990.
How like native a quick kickoff had gone as well. Like where he's like, it doesn't matter in here, you know. And then he says alt modes are for wimps, and it's like, everyone's like, I get that. Leonardo DiCaprio sitting up.
It's the Leo point. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
See what you're doing there.
There is a Target 2006 reference in there, isn't there? Numerically.
Well, there is. It's the issue numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, 78/88 or something. Yeah.
There's at least 113, or was that just in bullets? I can't remember.
God, how early did it start? I don't know.
Jeez,
I know.
I read today.
That was we were at our most indulgent with the kind of references. I think we both eased off the.
But to the point that we did back off a bit, because I do remember.
Yeah, we did.
Eventually, there was talks about that where we were sort of like, and I think it could have just been a bit of swell of confidence and a bit of sort of self assuredness, where we were sort of like, we don't need to tip our hat to anyone else. We can make our own thing.
That's right, and I think there's only so many times you need to scratch that itch or go to that well. I think we know a few nods and references. I think
so. As you say though, like. The further back you are from it as a whole, then it kind of, and the fact that it references very kind of key moments in the UK comic, especially, it kind of ties them to it a little bit more. It feels like. I think at the time we wouldn't have seen it, but I could see it now reading it today. Like it felt, because it felt like different people wrote it. Do you know what I mean? Like if I look at the emails and the admin stuff, do you know, I can feel the sweats that I was getting. But when I was reading, but when I was reading it, I didn't feel that, and it felt like it was like. It's
just good comics.
The post-traumatic stress of the Wreckers.
Yeah.
The reference that really got me out of all of them, because I couldn't immediately place it. I had to look it up, admittedly, but I knew it was the original comic, and I knew it was a US issue, but it was May Your Wires Never Cross and Your Luster Never Dull. And as soon as I read it, I was like, the Leo point, literally. Like, hang on a minute. And I Googled it instantly, like, which issue is this and where's it from? And that was a weird one, because it's not a UK reference.
No,
either.
I know. No. We threw our net wide. That was from the Right of Auto brand ceremony, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so core, especially, that felt like that's core.
We steal off Bob as well.
All right. Yeah, good to say, yeah.
I remember being asked at the time, and James as well, like, which record did you like identify with the most and stuff, you know? And I think ultimately I think I landed on Pyro. I think just sort of like not as definitely not, you know, kind of a chicken shit basically, like, you know, kind of he's quite he does go out bravely,
does the right thing in the end,
but like it's sort of like. No,
doesn't work for him.
Doesn't work on a fan. Creative doesn't work for me, brother. So he's a
Hogan reference. I like it.
So I kind of think, you know, but I do think there's something in the four. Well, definitely in Rotorstorm, Pyro, and Iron Fist. There's definitely I can see elements of me, but it definitely has something, the fan and the kind of the outside that you project and stuff, and that being like Roller Storm, and then that, it's kind of something similar to Pyro, but telling everyone you believe yourself, you believe it's going to be like this for you, and it's not, that's Pyro. Yeah. And then Guzzle's a vengeful little dickhead, so that's in everyone too,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's some, all throughout though there are great references. I also loved like seeing Macabre and like Fang and those guys, Triton. And
smelling my own fart at that stage. Yeah,
it's kind of wild to see them in there in a weird way, because of course them being Marvel original characters, I didn't know if that would be like a licensing thing or not. But
no, if they appear in Transformers,
it's all good.
The lie about Death's Head is that they're owned by Transformers.
Nice. Yeah.
No, if they appear in Transformers, they're Transformers characters, so we were able to do that then.
Yeah. When it came to writing that scene and having the flashback, our thinking was, you're either going to have recognizable characters, established G1 characters, it's kind of mainstream-ish, and most characters were accounted for. And if anything, actually, if it was like a high and die thing, there's someone out there who, I don't know, Horrible is their favorite character, and at that point he'd not been in it, and there he is just to be killed off. So limited utility, but equally, if they're just complete generics that no one's got any connection to at all, so we thought, well, why not take pre-existing characters, albeit very obscure ones,
because they've all got strong looks, or enough of them have strong looks as well.
They're identifiable. So,
I kind of like tech them up a little bit to make them look like they could transform, and gave a few extra details and stuff.
We plucked them from, because it's not exclusively the TF UK stuff. There's, I think, Crosscut and so on from the US.
A couple,
So we're equal opportunity character harvesters.
I felt great to get Macabre in there, because he felt to me, I think
that was a proper link to.
Yeah, it's a proper sort of like, I remember as a kid just seeing him, and he's such a cool, quite Kirby-esque design that Will Simpson gave.
Yeah,
he's got like
this gun and stuff.
But I totally imagined like that there had been multiple battles between him and Impactor. Even though he's just an opportunist who just gets a lucky shot off, he looks so badass. Like he has to be, he makes Megatron look like a jabroni, So he's.
I'm enjoying all the wrestling references, Nick.
It's just for you, Liam. It really is.
That's why you're my guy.
The only reason I'm here. Exactly. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the contrast you did with Squadron X as well. When you see them the first time, when you see them the second time, they look like innocent, sad children before they're about to be executed. But it's like it's a real stark contrast. Like the way they're looking at the camera, it's like, oh, hello.
Yeah,
like
they're completely tied up. Completely, there was no margin. Impactor did something wrong. It's a very, very bold Impactor.
Oh, that's why it's called POVA, isn't it? Point of view.
Point of view.
Yeah.
I love that. Brilliant.
So I had one question. This is really random, but I have to get this in here because
this is the night 4 at Sixo. This is the absolute last time we ever speak about Last Stand of the Records.
Yeah, we're never going to talk about it ever again.
No.
So.
This is the last stand of speaking about the last stand.
It really is.
Part
it's
1.
done now. We're going to delete all physical and digital copies of the comic after tonight. That's it. Be done.
If we were to reconvene in another 15 years, I will be 63. So,
but that's not going to happen, James, because as we know, you're...
Well, as we know,
it's a race between you and Pope Francis as we speak.
There's going to be like a little white smoke.
Which direction I'm
James
heading.
Roberts is going to be chosen.
There'll be a conclave for new hot-bodied Guernseymans.
Anyway, your question.
Yes. So the question was going to be, Springer, did you purposely draw him to have a broken nose?
Yes. I just wanted him to look.
Yeah.
I wanted him to look like he'd been in I like making them look as different as I can, as characterful as I can. And like often with Transformers, obviously the helmets will tell you that they're different characters and stuff, but facially it's not often much difference between characters. So I try and give them handsome boy chin and kind of and broken nose for Springer. So just because made him look like he'd been through a few fights. So
it was just a really cool detail.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice. It's kind of a way of sort of knowing that it's like quote unquote my Springer then as well. So it's kind of but he's fun to draw. It's a nice little sort of like shape to draw. So yeah,
because you often get robots, whatever, Transformers that have got, I don't know, little dents or scars, or like Zaren's little scar on his chest, that kind of thing. This was the first time I remember thinking, I reckon that's a Transformer with a broken nose.
Yeah,
it just seemed like such a sort of idiosyncratic detail,
Yeah, he looks a lot like Owen Wilson in some angles in those early.
He
ones.
does.
I feel like I've kind of like got it a bit better as the years gone on. Because sometimes it kind of go a little bit too like Gonzo when he walks into a window sort of thing. But but otherwise it's a nice look. It's it's one I'm happy with. So it's especially noses are really good because I mean they make no sense on Transformers. I mean lots of things don't.
No,
in Transformers,
lips,
like teeth, for example, lips exactly. But they're part of their storytelling devices. Yeah, saliva.
Well, yeah, like if you start tugging on that thread,
100%.
Like sitting down. Down doesn't need to be a thing.
Wings on your back and things like
that.
Yeah,
it's not comfortable.
There's no need for chairs.
It tells you a bit about them, and it's a bit of character design that you can kind of do. But
makes a lot of sense. The sitting down thing that always gets me is how they design buildings and cities and whatever else. When they're all different sizes. So if you're going to have chairs and things like that, you've got, MicroMasters and
standardized
else.
chairs.
How does that work?
So then I always think robots in disguise are some of the Transformers, the chairs and tables, and that's literally that's them. So they're everywhere, remember, guys.
Form over function, function over form, and all that.
Exactly.
It's
real.
Always the door frames. Like, how do they get through them all? Which architect goes around and goes, it's got to be a one size fits all thing, guys. It's got to be accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Poor Octane can get nowhere.
I remember when I redesigned Metal Hawk for the and it's just the wings just coming out. Like, he has to sort of like walk through a slider because I just wanted him to look cool and have wings just the size of a football field. But I find James sometimes when his scripts doesn't always keep track of the size relations between different characters sometimes, and sometimes you have to sort of but it's only,
so when they're
it's only
in a dialogue
from pure writing and it'll say something like such a character
I don't have images in my head. That's the trouble. I just
that's not what I'm saying.
Floating verbs. That's all I've got to work with.
No, but punctuation. That's it.
Just a giant hyphen honing into the old.
It's one just like elongated M dash, and the characters are super.
It's
not. It was
definitely
a cute
not coming
quirk.
back in 15 years to collab again now, are you?
It wasn't a criticism. It was like a
it
was a compliment behind the curtain. Well, it definitely wasn't that, but it was a peek behind the curtain of sort of like, isn't it sweet when
well, we can't all be artists and writers.
Oh Jesus!
That's the visuals you get though, then, isn't it? Because then you've got a character that's like massive kneeling down talking to one of the smaller characters or something like that, which then change the dynamic and really, it changes what we were used to, which was always just kind of stoic pose to the ultimately was like previous.
I remember I wrote a bit where Verity pats Magnus on the head. And Nick was like, "No, mate, she's human size." I'm like, what?
That's the bit I was thinking about, but I won't say this time. My favorite of that is the Hound and Ultra Magnus from.
I was just going to say it.
I love it.
Yes, Senior. That's Senior himself.
Yeah.
You blame Furman for that.
Yeah. He's got more class than I do.
That got referenced in the Furman episode as well, actually, with us. It got discussed about the size sort of difference between them and everything. But that is funny because I remember reading that issue very clearly for the first time and being like, hang on, Magnus is how big? It's just a really shocking panel.
How much more did it make you want to get him for Christmas? Like,
that was the best Christmas ever when I got him. Amazing.
Yeah.
Hasbro was like, we got to sell these new leaders, and Jeff's like, leave it to me.
That's when he decided I've got a future in advertising. See you later, comics. He saw the units shifted that Christmas. So.
Absolutely.
To this day, his solution is make it big.
God, that guy's good. Yeah.
He is good.
Just going back, Nick, to what you were saying there. So the broken nose on Springer, but then you've got Overlord, who was pretty immaculate, really. Which again, when I was looking at it and thinking, this guy's been in loads of fights, but he's never lost, is what I was reading with this as well.
It's all there. That's character design. That tells a story.
Yeah, so is that, but intentional, yeah, because he's so pretty as well, with those luscious lips, you know.
It's a Caligula vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That was the whole thing. I kind of there's none of that really suggested in the toy, but I took that from the original toy. That sort of that real kind of classical imperiousness, you know. Yeah. And I kind of was thinking along the lines of like, kind of Roman statues, and Michelangelo's David was kind of the basis for his face, because he was originally before, and that's because he was sort of designed before all his motivations were completely, boiled down, that he was going to be just kind of almost a mad Caligula type, and he kind of is in his whimsical way. He's very whimsical. That gets mentioned a lot in the book, but it's for a purpose. But like he's so kind of that led itself well to that kind of Caligula Judge Cal thing, that gets so that's why he's got those lips, those really prominent sort of kind of like
very sinister expressions. He comes across that way.
And it kind of something you hadn't kind of seen before, and he's a kind of classically looking. Overlord isn't a very Decepticon looking Transformer, like even even if you look at the toy, that you could stick an Autobot badge on it, and it feels like it could be, and different colors, maybe, but different color scheme for sure. But the layout of him, he's not, that's quite a classic heroic head Overlord has.
It's true. Yeah, it is.
And even the layout, the kind of boxy layout of, it's Magnus-esque. Like it's he's so there's an element of that, of kind of like being a very heroic looking toy, and that kind of just the ripples from that kind of led me to the character design of the
it's cool
of in the comic. Then
very cool.
I find them hard to draw still. I don't know why. Out of all of them, I find them overall really hard to draw.
Your kind of interpretation of him has become somewhat sort of established as the default, hasn't it, for the character?
I think it seems to be. And it was never
sort of overtaken it.
Yeah, I was never sort of like an FU to the Master Force, because I love Master Force, but I just wanted to do something different. I kind of, but it was quite freeing. I knew I loved the toy. I didn't think I wanted him to be in Wreckers. I didn't think the Master Force version of him was it. But I was writing and drawing my own comics when Overlord came out. I remember like introducing him into my own comics, my own like fan fiction comics when I was like 12, and him just being this unstoppable, which is what he's sold as on his tech specs and in the toy catalog, and like he's this this unstoppable machine, the self-contained nomadic assault machine,
some nomadic, exactly.
And that just stuck with me, and especially when he's looming over the motivators on the box art of them, and incredible. It just so I kind of wanted to do that character and what that sort of set off in my head a little bit of just being this sort of like, like to go back to wrestling, Liam, the whole idea of selling and stuff, like when Overlord lands and stuff and all those like generics and stuff, just so that sells you Overlord straight away before he lifts a finger, because they just go, oh bloody hell,
in a weird way, that's what I think for a lot of fans, and I include myself in this, works about both of your work, is that because you grew up as, certainly for our peer group, as peers, reading this stuff and enjoying it, and then just being so enthusiastic about it and loving it, your work addresses it in that same way, if that makes sense. You have that same reverence for it that speaks through the work that you then write. And so a lot of the character choices, a lot of the way that you interpret different characters, it's almost like then we as fans, the rest of us, get to see the stuff that we might have imagined in our mind's eye when we were kids finally put on the page, and I think there's something really appealing about that.
I'd never heard until James sort of said it a few minutes ago about probably about 3 hours ago, about sort of like a kind of a childlike sort of kind of kind of gut way of kind of introduce or dealing with the characters that he mentioned I have, and I definitely think there is a bit of that tipping at the toy box sort of thing, and I did a bit of that in like Last Spot Standing as well, and like it's it's part of the roots of it, isn't it? And I think that's one definitely for our peer group, that's very fundamental. That's our introduction to Transformers, was sort of like, being down on the floor and kind of like, creating our own scenarios based on either from scratch or, kind of like riffing off stuff we've seen in the comics and cartoons. So I think maybe that's what's kind of echoing that, but it's really lovely to hear that, Sixo. That's a nice thing to observe.
But in a way that I think I kind of wanted to make that point, because it goes beyond just, oh, here's this character that and I've tossed him into a book. Do you know what I mean? And that is one thing, that's fine. But there's a sort of it's a way of tying it all together almost, and using those different characters in particular scenarios and ways that then is meaningful if you've grown up with the same sort of shared experiences of that brand, if that makes sense. And just little touch points like when you said about the Overlord artwork on the back of the Motivators box. That's such a significant touch point for so many of us that we remember that. So it's sort of... a story like this comes with that context almost if you're of a certain age and you're reading it in the right context,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think in that respect, records could only have been written by people our age at that time.
Yes,
and probably from our geographical region as well.
Totally. Actually, that's true. Yeah. And then if in 5 years' time, if 2 30-year-olds ish wrote a miniseries, then God. You're talking about 2000, so people that were, or actually more than that, people who were into Transformers in the late noughties, would be writing that version of records in 5 years.
I wonder, is there like an Armada Last Stand of the Records?
But
I don't mean that.
A Bayverse Last Stand of the Records.
No. But that's just a really nice one. That's just where they all go for have tea and cakes. That's the way my oldest daughter plays. Actually, my 2 daughters play Transformers. They just they hate it when they fight. So they they just
that sounds like Jason's Transformers.
That's me. That's my Transformers. Absolutely.
Why can't we just get on? Why can't we get on?
Because let's all be friends.
The geographical thing is definitely worth mentioning because we got the best of all the worlds. It feels like, apart from the cartoon, to be honest, because I think that's what James and I we never really saw much of the cartoon, right? So. But we got the comics, and I think through the 90s we were probably doing the tape trading thing of getting the Japanese stuff, and Beast Wars, obviously, and then we're getting all the UK Euro toys, and we're getting the American comics that's showing us, and so it's a perfect storm. We were in the right place at the right time, literally, because we were the right age and in the right position in the industry to kind of write those stories. And it's a lot.
I do think that this story, I do think Last Stand of the Wreckers, as Liam kind of alluded to, I think it has the potential to be one of those stories that then goes on to influence the next generation of Transformers creators.
I wish I could redraw.
I wish,
apart from issue 5, I wish I could pretty much redraw everything in it. I think maybe.
Yeah, but people.
I know, and I'm not just saying that to say, "Hey, tell me," but it's. No, I would love to sort of say yes. That would be what an honor that would be. But I think as the artist, as the writer, as the co-writer, I think James, I think we might think, rightly or wrongly, we might have done better things since, possibly. But then I don't know. After reading it today, it's sort of like, oh no, I do get it. I just writing storytelling wise, I kind of don't want the story. I don't want the artwork going up against where I hopefully am these days.
Like it's in part because we didn't, the Revolution crossover notwithstanding, in part because we didn't do another thing together like that.
No.
And because of the ages we were and all the rest of it, it's its own thing. It stands alone. It's not that continuity heavy, so it can be picked up by novices.
That's really important.
And it's a done in one. It's got a beginning, middle, and an end. So I think all those reasons, like anything we've done, we'd go back and tweak some stuff.
But the thing I was going to say though is that people say this of you mentioned Beast Wars. People say that about Beast Wars, for example. They say, "Oh well, it would be great if they could redo the animation."
Yeah.
But actually, I think. And
it's the charm, isn't it?
It's part of what it. Yeah, it's the charm. It's what it was in its original format, and actually, as it happens, I think the art is absolutely perfect as it is.
Thank you.
So do you know what I mean? I'm
need
not.
Everyone
I'm not
to
saying...
know that's not what I'm looking for. I just, it's
what you're getting.
Yeah.
But I suppose what I'm saying is that even if it wasn't, which it is, but even if it wasn't, it would still be within the context of how the story was, and to change it or to update it, it would never be the same.
No, I don't want to. I wouldn't. Yeah, no, I don't see the value in it. It's just in remastering it and those roots. But you know what? There's little
they
things.
Remaster music and they make it worse.
Yeah, stop giving it to me, Spotify. I don't want the remaster. I don't want the re-record, the rights dodging re-record. There's stuff like the storytelling, and it's like it bugs me. For example, Overlord when he shoots Rotorstorm in the head.
Yeah.
The panel, the direction of the panels changes. It's all silent, so there's no speech balloons. But it should all read left to right, and the final shot does not come. It goes from. It's not consistent, is what I'm saying. I can't remember that example, but it bugs the life out of me that the basic geography of the scene doesn't stay consistent, and it's such a stupid thing to have done. It's really legitimately stupid.
Do you think that's why your boy had a nightmare?
Yeah. I think it is. I think, yeah. He just the dissonance derailed him.
That's why I won't tell you. It's why I won't own up to it. Like, why? Yeah. Why did you have a nightmare? I can't tell you, Dad.
Exactly. I can't tell you, Dad.
I'll break your heart.
You know what happened the last time I told you your panel's transitions were awful? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's nothing to do with the artwork of the story. It's the layout. The layout is wrong.
It is, and you'll notice it now, and it'll be one of those things. And I remember, you're not really spoken. Simon Furman did it on this podcast. He pointed out his flaws. So
exactly.
It feels like a very open and honest.
It goes back to what I said earlier about being a creative, is that you are going to inevitably look back. Like, let's be honest, right? If you created the perfect piece of work, then you'd be like, great, I'm done.
Spotlight Cup,
and that's it, and you stop. Yeah, well, there we go. That's a good example. but it is that thing, isn't it, that you always progress. But then, you mentioned George Lucas, and you mentioned going back and remastering stuff. And
it's me, Lucas Furman.
Do we look back on those things and go, oh, I'm so glad I can never get the original and the hand shot first and this kind of stuff. So it's better to leave stuff alone, in my opinion. I
do agree. It's just weird. It's just weird that those instincts weren't there.
It's inevitable.
Whereas it feels like they're mostly there in issue 5. It feels like it's very strange. I read it. It feels like I could see a bit more of me in issue 5, and like issue 5 is usually when all the artwork goes to hell because it's the last issue. But because they've been the fill in and the assists on the previous few issues, that meant that I was able to sort of like hit the last issue's art running, and I was like adamant that I was the only person going to touch the lines on this, and they made it happen. In fairness, they were very much like, if you think you can do it, do it. And I do remember drawing that issue vividly because it was like, I can't let go of this, it's, but I can't, it's the last issue. You can't use any shortcuts either, so it's like.
Was that for both of you though, as well, that everything you're going through and the whole learning that you're going through, but the confidence that by that point that you're just like, you found your stride, as both of you as artists and creators at the end of this book, did you? It's probably difficult to quantify what you learned at that point, really.
Yeah, I think for me, with the art side of it as well, it felt like I knew what an issue of Last Stand of the Wreckers looks like, and that happens. I think with you hear a lot of artists talk about it, that they'll feel that you're getting the hang of something just as the project kind of ends, or the next artist hands over. You feel like, but definitely. It's it's a good looking. One of the good things about issue 5 is that there's a smaller cast list because all the generics on the planet are dead. Most of the main characters are dead. So you've got and there's a couple of nice splash images of Overlord blowing up, and then the skeleton Overlord. So it's kind of it's a bit of a dream to sort of draw. So
the good thing about 5 is that it's the same if you've told a story properly and you get to the finale or the climax, it almost writes itself because you've lined up the pieces so well, you think, that the final part can only go one way and each scene can only play out in a particular way. And if you've weighed it correctly, then there's no flab, there's no fat. If anything, actually, it's it's precision engineered. And that's how it felt by the time we got to issue 5 with Wreckers, because as you said earlier, while it is a war story, there's a lot more to it than the fights, and there's a lot of, not least the pivotal emotional core there is the flashback to Pova, and there's that. Then there's the actual old school final showdown. So there's, it just we although I think Nick and I endeavored in nearly every single issue to have some significant forward momentum, so some event or some set piece, we held back all the bigger stuff to the last issue, and it felt very freeing.
I remember that side of things being very heavily engineered. Like we worked really, really hard on the beats of it and stuff, and kind of like that kind of keeping
it felt well weighted. And
totally.
We knew it was good. We knew the whole thing was good.
Yeah,
I think we did from the start.
And you were right.
So, and that can hold even if everyone else thinks it's shit.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I mean, we've worked on stuff like that too, James.
Yeah, so we've seen both sides of the coin. But if you're proud of something and you think it's good, you think it's got merit, then
definitely,
that's how we felt. So
well said,
quite right.
I agree with you.
It's good.
It's not something I don't think I could have said at the time, but I think I definitely felt it, saying it, feeling it, two different things. But I think the way we approached it with each other, and kind of even before you were officially on board and stuff like that, it was sort of like we kind of, we knew this could be good. And it was so nice that we were kind of crossing the finish line. Well, we didn't cross the finish. As I say, it was like a relay thing. I hope James doesn't mind me saying this. It's and feel free to cut it if people want. So I very much was like, James, okay, we're happy with the last script. Don't talk to me for X amount of weeks or whatever. And then I got back in touch with James afterwards. And in the meantime, his grandmother had died.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it was like, true. He was like, so I was like catching up. I was like, hey, what's been going on? And he's like, oh yeah, my grand died.
Life.
Like,
yeah.
Oh no.
And her last words were,
wreck and rule, bitch.
Wow.
Tell Nick the scale is fine.
You wily old buzzard.
The character size differential is no biggie. And then, she expired. Yeah. So that happened. And then, I wanted to put like a little dedication in issue 5, and Nick said, no. She had nothing to do with this. This name is not going in
I'm
there.
I'm barely allowing your name in this. You can choose. Her name could be in it, but your name is off the book. So, I mean,
one or the other.
It's all true. It's all true.
Yeah, and that's when we met then, like in May that year, and then James and his partner came over and hung out with myself and my then girlfriend, current wife, and we were. That's when we took those daft, moody author photos in the graveyard.
Shots,
Oh, I love those photos.
Really?
Your album cover photo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those photos should be the cover artwork. To
I was
going to
yes, they should
use those ones. Yeah, because those two were definitely dead. Those guys. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
but with those Overlord on his throne behind them, basically, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Looming over.
When you met up, though, what did you think of the reaction then by that point? Because obviously, like, it was like everybody loved it.
It was honestly a little bit of a victory lap, to be honest. I have to say, we talked about this a couple of times, James, in public, haven't we? About like the night we sat, I pulled out like all the original artwork, and obviously James had never seen it, and so I went through it like start to finish, and we were sitting on the sofa. And we were staying like late at night, like looking at it. And his partner comes in, and she goes to the two of us, "Have you both kissed yet?" And we'll never tell you, Tumblr, whether we had or not. But
right.
But do you remember, James? We were like giggling.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say. It was when we were going, as Nick says, we were going through it page by page. And there was this kind of different type of distance between. If anything, actually, we were simultaneously closer to the story because we'd lived and breathed it the whole 5 issues, but also there was a nice distance because we were done and we were done. It was out.
Issue 5 was in the shops at that stage.
Yeah. So when we got to the page, I remember where Fortress Maximus is basically limbless, lobotomized and hooked up to a door. And we were like, Jesus Christ! We got away with that, didn't we?
We just were laughing so hard at it,
so ludicrously violent.
Yeah. But it was that, and then I remember what set us off again is the bit where Overlord says, and then I'd already sent the command: kill every prisoner. And it's a shot of one of the prisoners with his head pulled off and an Autobot badge stuffed in his face.
In his mouth? I know. It's like, it's just some Coppola nonsense going on here. It's dark.
It's like, oh man, who hurt you both?
Yeah. Well, do you know, I actually made a note. I put one of my notes that I made for tonight was Springer's face, WTF. Just literally that again. Because I was
what? I'd forgotten about that until reading it tonight. Completely forgotten that.
And I put a note in our little chat when we were talking about like lining up this. Okay, what we're going to ask about and all of this. And I think I put a note in there about like I've got to ask about what went wrong with one of them. That was like that's what we're going to put in.
Yeah. Totally.
But that just ties back to that's how Transformers. Like we talked about it, kindly about being like a little bit end of Time Wars, end of Target. Like Time Wars is like the king
horrible
of that
stuff.
Sort of like horrible stuff. Faces coming off. True. So it's very much like it felt like this is how you end a Transformers story, and and then that ties into the whole like Mexican standoff that we had going on between the editors and Hasbro and each other about who a character had to die, but who was it going to be? Do you know?
Right.
Because every potential fatality had fans. Had champions within.
Hasbro wouldn't let us kill Cup.
And Hasbro.
Oh no, I wouldn't. Yeah. I wouldn't let them kill Cup.
You wouldn't let us kill Cup.
That's what it was. Of course it was. Jeez,
you are Hasbro.
I know. Yeah.
And
Denton wouldn't let us kill.
Wouldn't let us kill Perceptor.
I
think there was another one that we were allowed to kill.
Because I can't remember that we do have it written down because we've done it in interviews, and I think that's my email survived with that. But it was very funny how so there was no high stakes death at the very end, but like Springer was clearly supposed to die, but then we kind of kept him alive at the end. That epilogue goes on quite long at the end. I found not necessarily too long, not in a sort of like Return of the King, Lord of the Rings, or the Batman sort of way, but the Prowl, the fact that it ends. I know it goes to Verity is the second epilogue, but you've got the Prowl and Ultra Magnus kind of. But it's a nice scene though with Ultra Magnus and Prowl.
I'm gonna read part of an email now. So Nick, I wrote this. I sent this to you at 11:25 at night on October 1st, 2009.
Wow.
Actually, it wasn't just to you; it was to Andy and Denton. So I'm not going to read it all, but it says, "Hey guys, Nick and I have spent the last few hours in between him penciling his heart out."
Thanks, James. Thank you.
Talking about the extent to which the end of the story needs to change in light of Hasbro's instruction that Springer must live.
There you go. Okay.
We don't want to be accused of killing off red shirts, but leaving Kirk and co standing. But at the same time, we understand we've got to work within set parameters. And then we go on about talking about rather than kill off Cup or Perceptor in lieu of Springer, blah, blah, blah. So, and there's about, God, it's quite a long email. So, God, it is a long email. So we were even then, that was around the script for the last issue. We were still.
It must have been, or possibly even 4 because we needed to, but definitely, it probably would have been close to the last issue. This is a really reductive thing too, but just the fact that James was on board means that he was handling emails do you know what I mean? Because I was up against it. That's invaluable. Which makes it sound like some more glorified PA, but it's not. But it's I'm so grateful that James was there to handle that stuff and keep the momentum going because he was really conscious and conscientious of me not losing more pages and losing earnings. The more pages I lose, the less I earn as well. So God, so it was Hasbro didn't want Springer dead. That's funny.
I remember being convinced at the time it was going to be Perceptor was going to die because
he was.
He'd been set up this whole thing. He was scared of death and he'd been overly armoring himself up. And it was in the one with the Cup. Springer epilogue in that's the second story, wasn't it?
That's it.
And I always remember thinking he's being set up to die here in some horrible fashion.
The original artwork for the cover to issue 1 of Last Time of the Wreckers has a load of cracks and dents and smashes on Perceptor's chest because I thought it looked cool, and Denton was very much like, no. He does not get his new armor plate scratched. So I was like, oh yeah, I did read it then. So so the original artwork has stuck that in. So.
Then in that basis, then was that the whole? I can't remember the proper terminology, but the thought bullet essentially that ultimately kills Iron Fist. Was that something that obviously that wasn't the original plan? Did that come in around this time, issue 5 sort of writing then, and then it was like a track back, or
no? We knew Iron Fist.
That was quite
that was established early on. We knew
because it's in the artwork as well that he's from issue 1.
Right,
it's just not on the cover because that had to be done months in advance. But
so
issue
we knew
1
that
was completed with that figured out, wasn't it? For sure.
Yeah, and then we built on it. I think it's because he's got his head wound in issue 1, and then issue 2 we start.
This starts getting dropped in.
Whether or not we may have wavered.
I think he has the blackout in issue 1, doesn't
he?
He does. I think
it's his first blackout because he's talking to the jump starters and stuff like that. So
we may have wavered as to whether we were actually going to kill him or not. I think we got attached to him, but we toughed it out in the end.
Yeah, we really poochied him, didn't we?
Yeah.
I really like the way that you as well. You got him through this whole horrific thing, and then just kill him off panel almost, and you just see his body dead. Then he died on the bus. Basically, he just died on the bus.
I mean, he literally died on his way back to his home planet.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Jack Lawrence hated that. He absolutely gave me both barrels over it. And I don't think he loves it in general, Last Stand of the Records, but I remember him sort of saying, like, the nihilism of it, like he was really annoyed by it. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but we it's got a note of hope at the end.
I think so.
Literally
I don't think it was all gratuitous. I hope it wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
No. I do appreciate it's really kind of like action movie. I mean this in a positive sense, not a pejorative, but like action movie schlock sort of return of Overlord after he's supposedly died.
Yeah.
And then he comes back for, he's all in flames and everything. It was just a wonderful moment.
Yeah.
It really had that kind of beat
I think we'd earned it by that stage as well, and I remember, it was really important that we had room in issue 5. I do remember that being a thing, and like to have big panels like that, because we're both
fun.
prone to sort of like, I think that was, I can't remember any specifics, but I remember very much stuff had to happen in issue 4 just for real estate reasons, because we wanted issue 5 to look like that, like really strong.
Issue 4 is packed, actually. Yeah,
issue 4 is packed, and that's the pared back version. I remember almost feeling that like it can it work, because it feels like we've taken too many parts out, with just kind of the escape and stuff, and the big fight,
the big debate in the chamber,
but it's mad, the stuff. It's mad. You see it in like stories and like media all the time, and movies. Like how the house can withstand so many parts being pulled out. That like the audience doesn't need everything, but it's you do have to put it all in to figure out what to take out. And that's what issue 4 very much is like.
And that's why That's why editors are worth their salt, because they can say with some degree of objectivity, take it out, it'll survive.
That we talk about, it did happen, and it was frustrating, but like there was lots learned because of it, and I definitely take. I try to apply that much scrutiny to characters, like motivations and kind of intentions, in anything else that I do thereafter. Like it's really not a bad thing to kind of do that level of stringency on it, because it's
stress test it.
Yeah. I think it's
and also you're the excepting in cases where there's more than one of you, you're the only one that knows what was originally in there. The story that reaches the eyes of the readers. That's the only version they'll ever know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what was taken out isn't like a delete. It's not like it was taken.
Yeah, no.
It just wasn't. It's not part of the story. It was, like it wasn't. It's not. When we're reading it, we're wanting you to imagine that that's theirs. So it's like some readers do think that like if it's kind of like when they've read the back matter in the records collections and stuff, they'd think, that means that was supposed to happen. No, yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say. It was fascinating what I was going to say. It was about Last Stand of the Records. No, I'll have to let you guys go.
You can edit it. You can edit that bit in.
Yeah.
Do it as a little pickup later, Nick.
Do a pickup.
Send it to me, and I'll put it.
You know what? I'll mention it when I'm on the Talking Transformers podcast next week. So I'll.
Right. Okay.
You just plug it. Cut that bit.
Yeah. That's out.
That's gone.
Yeah, that's done.
Can you boot him? Can we kick him now?
Yeah.
That's it.
Release me.
Dead to us.
Kill me.
The rest of the episode is just us just saying, and Nick had nothing else to say. That was it.
And ironically, it was him that died, not James.
We had to cut the interview short after Nick soiled himself on screen.
That can go on TIFF Wiki.
We've never seen anything like it. The sheer volume of coverage.
Good God.
Content.
Some people would pay for that content.
It's true.
Very good. Well, listen, it's been absolutely brilliant to sit and chat about this comic, and I do think, and I know we're not just blowing smoke or whatever, but I think we all do think that it's an exceptional tale that has stood up over the test of time. I mean, 15 years, and hopefully, if it does get another printing or whatever with Image, that maybe a new generation of fans will find it anew, which would be really fantastic.
That'd be nice.
It would be nice. It's for all my I'm not down on it, but it's a shame that here we are talking about it, and I'm very proud of it, and I would like more people to read it. It is a shame that people can't. I understand why. I'm not saying we should be first of the queue or Last Stand of the Records deserves to be, but it's a shame that people listening to this who might want to check it out cannot legally obtain it.
I know. Yeah. No. It's it would be lovely to see it out and about again.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, it
deserves
but
it.
James and I have got like loads of copies left that we're going to sell for like 200 quid a pop because they're so you hit us up and we'll sort you out, Twinkle.
Yeah.
There you go. What an offer.
Anyway, thank you for letting us wax lyrical about.
No, it's our pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Amazing.
Thanks.
Absolutely superb.
I hate it when we're on because it means it's an episode that I can't listen to. So there'll be a morning's gap of my my triple takeover listening. So I can't wait to hear you talk about.
We'll have to make it up. We'll do something that you really want to hear for episode 101. How's that?
Yeah, we'll just get James back on his own.
Yeah.
Then...
Yeah. Careful what you wish for, Nick.
Question 1. What do you really think about Nick?
Yeah.
You won't hear him admitting to any sort of like failures in his finales. So.
Failures in his finales.
Nailed it, mate. Nailed them all, mate.
That's the memoir right there. Failures in my finales.
I can't help it if Simon Furman fluffs it every time. So.
It's called a second draft, Simon. Simon, I'm joking. Nick made me do it. He made me bants.
Oh. He is the puppet master.
Oh, great stuff.
He led me into a trap.
He's leading you on.
I remain uncancelled.
I think Simon, I think you're wrong. I think the last part of Tiger 2006 is impeccable. So
that's
agree to disagree on that.
God's sake. Yeah. This makes me sick.
You're gonna have to listen to that episode now, James, and hear him berate his own work. So
I know.
I'm gonna and all.
Hey, anyone who's listening to this who isn't already a patron of the Patreon, they should have signed up because it's some bloody good stuff. These boys work very hard, and they're all the extras and all the extra work and all the extra content they put in. They're just such lovely company. And they've done 100 free episodes for you, and they've got so much good stuff there that's just waiting for you. And big fan of Liam's nonsense, especially because it's just because it tastes like it's the
best sale ever. That
one. No, because it's like
nonsense.
Supermarket fizzy pop in ear form, and it is just. It's good for you, but you don't know it. And
cola in your ear.
I love that. That's exactly what it is. So that's my endorsement for Triple Takeover.
That's so nice.
Can I put that on my grave? Because I like that.
Yeah, you should.
Well,
there's a lot of talk of death tonight.
I respect
this
you.
is very appropriate for the comic we've been talking about.
We're 5 men over 40. This is the last stand of the feckers, is what this is. So,
That's the one you need to write and draw. There you go.
He had that ready. He was
waiting
to drop that.
That same look I do when I'm holding one of
yours. No more scare and hood. We want last stand of the feckers.
That's the feckers.
You definitely thought that through. But yes, people should go and check out our Patreon because we do have 5 glorious tiers of stuff on that. You know this. You've heard 99 episodes before this of us talking about all of this kind of stuff. I just worked it out quickly. If this is 100 episodes, on average about 2 hours per episode, that's almost 8.5 days just in public episodes alone.
Whoa.
Back to back of us talking, which is just
lucky
insane.
We like to talk.
Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. Never mind all the Patreon stuff. So, if you're not completely bored of us already, go and get more of it, I guess. That's all I can say.
Days. I mean, you thought like Terry Waite and John McCarthy and Brian Keenan had it. Right? Jesus. That's a...
Oh, wow. I never thought we would get a Terry Waite.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want that.
Here we are.
Nick. Now that they would have made good names in the Revolution crossover.
They really would.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Terry Waite just locked in alt mode for 5 years.
They've got to be up there with the best hostages. A1
hostages. Yeah.
Oh no.
Stuck in a pretender shell.
Yeah, they're in their own league.
I also feel the need to point out that I never thought I'd hear the word rapacious used on this podcast, but it took for James to come on for it to finally happen.
Yeah, there you go.
He's
there's more words like that in the other Patreon levels. So
yeah, go and check it out.
If that's what we're doing now,
that's the content. Yeah, exactly.
It's popping.
Yeah. We've got a sponsor as well, believe it or not, tfsource.com. So everybody should go and check them out. But otherwise, guys, what's your last word on Last Stand of the Wreckers?
I don't think there's any. I don't know. Life persists.
That's nice. There we go.
There we go.
It's true. It's true for all of us.
Apart from James, but it's...
Right.
I hope that can find something tomorrow. I hope the doctors find something, and I'll phone you up, and I'll say,
"Wow, it's got dark."
And I'll say it's stage 5. They didn't even know there was a stage 5.
I'll tell you what they'll find, James. They'll find you behind the locked front door that they can't get through. He's been ringing his phone for hours.
They'll say, I've never seen a man die in such tragic circumstances. How could someone live like this?
They thought Roach's expulsion was bad on the podcast. We'll be weeks sifting through this.
Up to our knees in it, they'll say.
Oh my
right,
God.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Jeez. I don't know how to end now. What do you do with that, honestly?
I know you keep trying to end, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because listeners, it's now
us in that direction.
It's 25 to 1 in the morning, listeners. Yeah. And
to be honest, that is genuinely the Last Stand of the Wreckers vibe. That is how this comic was made. It was sort of like in these hours of the night. So
it's very fitting then.
And having these type of conversations.
It's like never-ending story. You've been with us through the whole thing. You are part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, it never ends.
It never ends.
And then a horse dies.
Jesus Christ.
Well, we should say, before we finish, a big thank you so much to both of you for coming on, because it really has been wonderful. We do appreciate it. So, and you are welcome back on anytime, of course.
Oh, man, yeah.
Thank you.
Goes without saying.
2026, 2026.
Yeah, obviously. Need to charge up the laptop again. James's headphones is going to need to recharge.
Yeah, please start charging your headphones now.
I want to come on and talk rubbish with you guys. I'm not about anything I've worked on.
We'd love to do that.
Ooh, yeah.
We should talk toys or whatever.
We're going to talk toys and stuff some night, I think. Just pick a
you guys both have the open invite, man.
Yes. Well, let's see what your listeners say. Let's see how many subscriptions you lose after this one, and we'll see how long the invitation lasts. But this is so much fun, guys.
Hey, Nick, Tapman wrestling figures.
Oh, you'll enable me. You'll enable me, Liam. I bought that. You can tie this in. I ended up buying the Studio Series Springer based on your pictures last week, Liam. So I was don't need him. Don't need him. I don't need him. I don't need him. Damn it! Now I have them. So yeah.
Not even your Springer.
Yeah,
he's a plant from Hasbro. That's what he is.
Well, it's you're all doing the Lord's work.
Oh, I did see that there was something. I shouldn't even say this, but this is what it did make me laugh. There was someone online the other week. They were talking about the new HasLab and all of this kind of stuff. But the suggestion was that there are people in the community that were planted by Hasbro specifically to talk these toys up, and some of these plants have been active for up to 10 years.
This goes all the way.
So much planning.
Goes all the way back.
Yeah, exactly. Man.
Suddenly a lot less interested in the JFK stuff coming out, and it's this is what I really want to get to the bottom of.
I know. I had to chuckle.
I've been seen.
I might not have any of these left, but possibly by the time this goes out, I have on nickroachart.bigcartel.com. I have done some Last Stand of the Wreckers artwork to commemorate the 50th anniversary. There might be a few headshots left on there, so if people want to check that out, they can own a piece of the original
should go and check that out.
Yeah. There were. I was just looking before we started recording. Some excellent stuff.
Yeah, who knows if they'll be there, but not really worth watching.
And James, are you still notebooking and things like this? Are they still on the way out?
Time for ordering has passed, so volumes 1 to 6 all done, and no plans to reprint this year. But there's a new book coming out actually in time for next month. Yeah, earlier than normal.
Is that when it's coming?
Not the
I
was wondering.
I thought it was okay. Sorry. Okay.
No, so I'll mention that there's 3 things I'm doing this year. The first one is a commemorative edition of Chaos Theory. So that's given the full annotated script treatment, and I've gone through a lot of the old pictures and things. So that's coming out in book form next month, and it looks very nice. And then there's the main thing for me this year is this new book on Transformers fan culture in the 80s and 90s. Title is decided but not revealed yet. And
the title is so good. The title is perfect.
That's coming out in August. And there'll be
cool.
Most likely 2 editions. There'll be a big deluxe coffee table one with lots and lots of pictures in.
Oh, can't wait.
And then there'll be a kind of mass market paperback with some photos in, but not as many. But
yeah.
Cool.
It's a very exciting project. That is, I'm very, very excited. And James's books are things of beauty, and my wife wants them, even though she has no interest in the insides of them at all, and she says as much. So, but she says, I thought about maybe doing an art book soon, and she said, "Oh, do them like James's. Oh, they're so good. Do them like James's. Yeah.
Say hi to your wife for me.
Do it like James. Yeah, I will.
She's my Wi-Fi now.
Right, you guys should go to bed.
Right, okay, I'm going to bed.
Yes, we should.
Yes.
Right, thank you so much to both of
love,
you.
guys.
It's
Thank
been
you
wonderful.
so much.
It's just me staying on solo for the Q&A then, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. You stay on. Literally just you, Nick, because we're all off to bed as well.
Yeah,
so.
I have to show you what shelf I am before I go. The shelf I'm there, look.
This little guzzle.
I'm there. This guy.
God, he's getting toys out
he's on
now.
brand.
Oh, that guy.
Look
Great
at that.
toy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, Wrecker's toys.
I just happened to be on Wi-Fi here, but it's still
just happened to be there. Yeah.
It's better. It's the best place in the house, and it's near my record shelf. So there you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right, well, we are officially done for our 100th episode. So do join us again for episode 101 next time. We look forward to that. And here's to another 100 episodes after that.
Hurrah!
Boom. Done.
You should have said wreck and roll, Sixo.
I don't even know if said that.
There we go. I'll splice it in.
Wreck.
It'll be seamless. Wreck
and indeed
there,
rule.
Wreck and indeed rule. And off.
Good stuff.